Yeah. Hey, welcome everybody to council meeting today. We're now open and we are live streaming. So bear with me with my voice today, and hopefully we manage to get through the agenda nice and smoothly. So first of all, apologies. We look as though we have Michael Laws for lateness, but nobody else. So somebody care to move that? Councillor Wilson, seconded Councillor McCall, all in favour. Aye. Against, carried. Today we actually have two public forum matters. So first of all, we had, yep, I can see you almost behind the pole there. First of all, we have David Bainbridge Zafar speaking about free public buses. So David, oh, there you are. Thank you. You'd like to come forward and sit up here, and you'll have 5 minutes to address us and then some questions or clarification. Thank you. Welcome.
Kia ora koutou. Thanks for inviting me to come and talk today. Yeah, I'm going to talk about public buses and why I think they should be free. Now, I'm not talking on behalf of any organisation or group. I'm not even talking as a bus user. I don't take the bus. If you made them free, you still wouldn't take the bus. But I do think, and I'm quite happy for my rates to go up to pay for free buses. I'm lucky enough to be able to live close enough to where I work that I can walk to work. And I'm lucky enough to be fit and able enough to do that. I'm also privileged enough to be able to afford to own a car and not have to worry about, can I afford to put petrol in it this week? But not everyone is in that same position. And buses for a lot of people in our society are a real lifeline. And the fares, even at $1 or when they go back up to $2, can be a real barrier to that lifeline. Those bus fares can prevent someone attending a job interview or accepting a job offer if it means they're going to have to take 2 buses to and from work every day, and those fares soon mount up. It can also be a barrier to someone attending a healthcare appointment. But ultimately, buses are a public service, and like many public services, they should be funded by rates and by the taxpayer. As a ratepayer and a taxpayer, I don't really care where the money comes from, whether it comes from central government and my taxes or from local government and my rates. But buses are already heavily subsidised. They're approximately 90% subsidised. I think you take about 3 million a year in fares from the buses. It costs you 10 times that to run the buses. So it seems almost mean to make them 90% subsidised and not go the whole way and make them 100% subsidised. The benefits of making the buses completely free, I think, are many, and I don't quite have time in the 5 minutes of public forum to go through all the benefits, but I did send you all a letter last month outlining what I think are the many benefits, and including some examples from other places around the world that have already made buses free and the benefits that they're seeing. The key one I just want to highlight this morning is climate change, which, you know, it's for me the number one issue that we're facing. And as our elected leaders, I think you guys all have a moral obligation to do everything we can to reduce our emissions. And buses, especially next year when you guys electrify the fleet, are going to be a key lever in that battle against climate change and to reduce emissions. And making them free will see a lot more people onto the buses. A lot less people driving their cars. And I think you ran a little study during COVID where you made some of the buses free. And anecdotally, lots of people that work in town told me that they jumped on the bus for the first time to go to work because it was free, and realized, yeah, it's cheaper than, you know, $8 a day parking or $6 a day parking, however much it costs. But once those fares come up to $2 there, $2 back, especially if you need to take 2 buses to get to work, that's $8 a day, $40 a week. It adds up to, you know, $2,000 a year. It can be a real barrier to people. And I'd strongly like ORC to consider increasing their rates to pay for free buses. Like I say, I've written you guys all a letter which explains it in a bit more detail, but happy to take any questions you have this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Andrew.
Thanks, David. Just a question around if the trade-off was better reliability and convenience and accessibility versus free buses, would you still be of a view that your highest priority is free buses?
I think so, yeah. I think that the studies from other places in the world where they have done free buses, they haven't necessarily increased the service and improved the service and improved the reliability. I think one of the towns in Belgium that I mentioned in the letter, they're still just running 2 buses an hour. They didn't increase the service, but they saw over a 1000% increase in user. And they didn't see any decline in car ownership. People just left their cars at home more often and jumped on the bus. So, yeah, I'm sure a bus every 5 minutes would be great. But in reality, I think the barrier for a lot of people is those fares, and making them completely free would, I think, be a higher priority than having more reliable buses or more frequent buses.
Thank you. Excuse me. Any other questions for David? Alan?
Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah, certainly getting people out of private cars into buses or other forms of transport, obviously that's an important climate change action that the council has some influence on. Now, I noted you said you're not a bus user yourself, and maybe this is a little outside the scope of your talk, but is there anything that might persuade you, instead of getting in your car on occasions, to hop in the bus instead?
I think yes, and I think it's fares, and I think for a lot of people, and myself being one of them, because I don't use the bus, when I do see a bus, if I happen to be, walking past a bus stop at the same time, I don't jump on it because do I have the change on me that I need? I don't have my B card. What am I going to need to do? But I think it would just become a habit for a lot of people to jump on that bus irregularly. I think it would increase the regular users, the regular commuters, but it would also change the habits of a lot of people. If they're only going 3 or 4 stops maybe, but it starts raining, I'll just jump on the bus for a couple of stops because it's free. You wouldn't do it if you had to pay $2, but if it was free, you would. And once you get into the habit of using the bus, that's when I think you start seeing that behavioural shift. So that, I think, is the key lever. It would have a bit of an effect on the regular users, but I think the bigger effect would be on the irregular users that would then lead into that behaviour change and see a lot more use of the bus and a lot less use of the private vehicle.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, I'd probably see it just a wee bit different. I think it's an unfair impost on the ratepayers when...
Just questions.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask.
Okay.
Well, actually, Alan just defined his...
Okay, sorry.
That's all right. All I'm doing
Fairness
is
to
framing.
everyone.
So would you see that, in fact, a general tax from central government would be a fairer way to do it, rather than ratepayers doing it? Then as a general tax, all are getting the benefit and all are actually being inflicted by the cost?
My personal view is no. My personal view is it should come from rates, because with rates, those with more proportionally pay more. And I think a lot of the people that are really struggling aren't paying rates. They don't own their own property, and they're the ones that can't afford the $2 fare, can't afford even the $1 fare now. The reason why I don't take the bus isn't because it costs $1 or $2. So for me, I'm happy to pay for it on the basis that I get the benefit anyway. I get the benefit in less air pollution. I get the benefit in that there's less traffic on the road, that there's more car parks for me to use when I drive around. So I'm getting the benefit anyway. It seems for me unfair to penalise those with least by making them pay for the bus, when those with the most, who would pay quite a lot in rates, would also be getting the benefit from more people on the bus and less people on the roads.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
We've come to 10 minutes now, so thank you very much for coming along to Public Forum. We always appreciate it when people
Right,
make the
thank you.
effort to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you, Pierre. Welcome. And yeah, you know the requirements, the 5 minutes. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou katoa. My name is Pierre Marasti, and I'm speaking on behalf of Extinction Rebellion. Before starting our own speech, I would like to say that we fully support what the previous speaker said. So for what we want to talk about today.
Have you got a brother?
No.
Thanks, Brian. Needs his 5 minutes.
COP27 was a complete failure. Yes, world leaders agreed to compensate developing nations for the impact of climate events, but by not addressing the root cause of the crisis, the burning of fossil fuels, it amounts to writing them a blank check. New Zealand was one of the first countries to commit to the creation of this compensation fund with a $20 million budget. But a single fairly small-scale event like the Nelson floods will already cost 60 million to repair. 3 years of floods and storms in Australia did cost insurances 12 billion Australian dollars. And this year's flood in Pakistan alone will cost up to 40 billion US dollars to the country. This empty promise for compensation doesn't do much either for the millions already starving today in the East African climate-induced famine. COP27 was a complete failure, and you should be enraged about it. World leaders, either out of delusion or incompetence, let you and your children down. I passed you a map. This map represents a planet at 4 degrees of warming. This is the world we are heading towards. At these temperatures, the equatorial belt will become uninhabitable due to a combination of heat and moisture that the human body simply can't cope with. Around the equatorial belt, you will only have deserts all the way to Central Europe and New Zealand's North Island. Only regions close to the poles will be favorable for agriculture. Looking at this map, I've got 3 questions for you. Where will the population from the equatorial belt go? How many humans do you think will be fed in this world? And what do you think your life and the life of your children will look like in this world? This is already happening today. Desertification is accelerating all the way to Europe. Wet bulb temperature events are already happening. But worst of all, we are already breaching tipping points. The Amazon rainforest is already a net emitter of carbon. The permafrost is already thawing, releasing methane. Ice is melting and we are losing its albedo effect. We are running out of time. Now is our last chance to stop this future from happening, and world leaders let us down. Today, we are addressing you as citizens, not as councillors, because you are affected by climate change too. And this crisis is one that no one else will solve for you. Either we all become part of the solution or there is no solution. In New Zealand, 71% of consumption-based emissions are coming from households. This number shows our individual responsibility, but more importantly, it shows the power we have to make meaningful changes as individuals. What we're asking you today is to measure your own personal emissions with the Toitū household emissions calculator and to think about how you can reduce them. It is a lot easier to reduce your personal emissions at home than it is to do it for a complex organization. Measuring and reducing your own emissions is probably the only way you can understand as a councillor, not only what needs to be done, but as well that it is possible. The Environment Minister of Gabon recently said, the world will only take meaningful action on the climate crisis once people in rich countries start dying in greater numbers from its effects. He might be right, but it would be wise to prove him wrong. We hope that you will use the Toitū calculator, and we hope that you will all become part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, any questions? Councillor Scott.
In a previous meeting, Alan to my left was promoting better leadership in the region by this council in relation to climate change, mitigation policies, any suggestions, Otago, in terms of what this council be done better?
Well, there is a long list. As I said, there is no silver bullet. So we need to change most of the things we do, really. So this council, for example, has got an influence on public transport. Public transport should be fully electrified, and there should be more of it. And it would be good if it was free as well. It would definitely encourage its adoption. Agriculture, of course. Synthetic fertilizers are a huge problem. Too many livestock is a huge problem. And there are a lot of great things happening in New Zealand. There is this organization called Can the Farm that promotes regenerative farming with lots of case studies. It's amazing what they do. These farms make more money not using any chemical fertilizer and having less livestock, diversifying a little bit. So yeah, there is definitely a lot that can be done in that direction. And generally, as I said, the root cause of the issue is the burning of fossil fuels. Anything that can reduce the amount of fossil fuels burned in houses for heating, for power, for transport. Yeah, less fossil fuel, I guess, plus agriculture, which is a specific problem in New Zealand, should be two of the main ideas you need to look at.
Thanks, yeah, that was a good answer there, long and full answer, so thank you, that was helpful. We do need to move on because we've got a really big agenda today, but we appreciate you coming along to public forum as well and presenting some new info to us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, excuse me, we are moving on then to confirmation of agenda. Nothing that I'm aware of that needs change, so we can confirm that. Reminder of the your interest and the need to stand aside where that matter arises. So that's just a reminder. The confirmation of the minutes. So the council needs to consider the 9th of November and the 24th of November, and they're there before you. There's somebody here to move both of those. Yep, both. Councillor Noon seconded, Councillor Wilson. All in favour? Right, against, carried. Thank you. 1, 2 matters for consideration then. And the first one there is terms of reference for the committee structure, and you've got the paper there, and I am the author of that one with some assistance from Amanda pulling that together. Excuse me. So I've got that there. I am aware of a few changes that probably need to be made that Councillor Wilson's brought to my attention anyway. But if you've got any questions or you have anything you'd like to raise, now is the time. So we'll start with questions. It might be a little messy while we sort through any changes and resolutions along those lines. Yeah, come forward and then that would be helpful. Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Wilson.
This is one of the actual proposed motions, and I'm sorry I haven't raised it before, but I've proceeded with it. So on page 18, and it's number 5, the resolution agrees that a paper be brought to the Public and Active Transport Committee addressing the opportunity to develop a regional public and active transport connectivity strategy by 30th of April 2023. And it's, I think, needing a comma somewhere because I presume the strategy isn't going to be developed by 30 April 2023, but the paper addressing the opportunities.
Oh,
Yeah, and I'm just checking, or have I got that wrong?
yeah, no, that's right. The paper should be brought forward rather than the strategy developed. Yep, good point.
I was
Kate.
just checking. Well, I mean,
Clarification, yep.
or clarification. I may not be a comma, it's just
Oh, so it's in the current recommendations.
Perhaps if we just move by April 2023, agrees that a paper
yeah.
by 30
Yeah.
April 2023 be brought to.
Yeah,
the
thank you.
committee. Could you do that?
Thank
Miss
you.
Vicky?
I just want to make sure that we weren't really, I appreciate how under the pump the staff are at the moment on that count.
Any other questions? Sorry about the coughing. Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, so we're also talking the membership as well, because that's part of the same motion of the committees. Right, so, and probably it's more of a general comment, and I just wonder your thoughts, Chair, is that it really is just the disparity of workloads. When you look around, some councils are only on, while we are all on all the committees of the whole, but the additional workloads, some councils are on 2 or 3 committees and working groups, while others are up at sort of 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, and we're all on the same pay rate, but there just seems to be a heck of a disparity around the workloads. In particular, even some of the more experienced councillors are sort of out of those committees, and if we're trying to, I think the workloads probably need to be spread around a wee bit more.
Okay, well, if we've got specifics for changes, that's absolutely fine. One that Councillor Wilson has raised is around integrated catchment management. And there was a resolution of the previous council that should be the chair and the deputy. But happy to adjust that today as well. No worries at all. But if there's others as well, just bring them forward, that's fine.
Well, yeah, I'm probably looking at a reshuffle of the whole lot, really, because you've got council laws is on one committee and one working group, and same with council Summers on one committee and 2 working groups, where others are on 3. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these people. I'm just saying that it just does the balance just doesn't seem to be fitting for a balanced pay schedule.
All right, Councillor Wilson.
Am I right? And I don't think it's covered in here, although I may not have gone back to recheck this. This is, as we've agreed, we've got an interim period where we're going to be appointing a new CE. And we're also in that stage that we're going to see how it goes and have a rejig. I mean, we're going to have to rejig this when we get the evening representative names in there and put them in as well. So are we seeing this as set in stone at the moment, or possibly something that's going to be a rolling, have a number of iterations as we go, just as we tweak things? Probably.
That's a good point, and that's for us to determine, isn't it? But yes, we did discuss that at the previous council meeting, whereby we thought it would be good to have a review, perhaps after about a year, maybe 18 months. But yeah, working groups are working groups, and they work on something until they're not needed to work on that something anymore, and the other topics come up, and sometimes they're formalized through here and sometimes they aren't as well. So agree, but hey, if there's specifics of who should be where that we've got wrong today, absolutely happy for them to be adjusted as well. But yeah, good point, Councillor Wilson. Any other questions? Councillor Forbes.
I'm just wondering about what Councillor Malcolm's saying, because I can't see that there is that much of an imbalance. Do you think that there is?
There's some people who are on similar themes, and they're the same people, because that makes sense. Like if they're a transport person, they're probably going to be woven into a number. If there's somebody with real planning experience and urban development type experience, they're probably going to be finding themselves on those areas. But I mean, yeah, this is your chance to define where you want to be. Councillor Scott.
Look, I don't want to, speak on behalf of Michael Laws, but my understanding is that he didn't want to be in too many of these groups. And I apologise for saying that might be correct, but that's my understanding.
Any other question? Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah.
Probably going to state the obvious, and that is that was an extraordinarily difficult task. And I think Gretchen has done an extraordinarily good job, actually, and she worked really with all of you and rang all of you up and spent a lot of time thinking about these. I'm not disagreeing with Kevin. It's almost impossible to get everyone to be exactly equal in terms of workload, and the various responsibilities actually aren't equal anyway. There's always leeway for people to put more time into something if they've got more time. I know Michael's keen to be involved, as we heard this morning, if we have a Lakes working group. So my view is that I'm with Gretchen. If you feel you have the time and you're interested in doing more, then presumably go back to Gretchen. But I'd just like to acknowledge, having seen the work that Gretchen's put into this, how significant that's been.
Councillor Weir.
I was just wondering about the appointments as representatives of council and sort of those various groups that mentioned and stuff, and if we know who organizes those meetings and stuff.
You just want some more detail about them, or sorry, what?
Or just like when does that sort of come through? How does that work?
How do they
basically?
work? Yeah, Connecting Dunedin and any others who've been involved in them might have answers as well, but Amanda?
Yeah, so they're led, Connecting Dunedin's led out of the DCC, and the Wakatipu one is led out of QLTC, and so the agendas, the meetings are set up by those agencies, and the agendas are distributed separately.
The various,
But they are
depending on the
appointments
group,
to those groups, yeah.
get an email or something.
Yeah.
About a
Yes,
meeting.
probably.
Okay.
Sorry, Kate.
No, they're the one, but it is one that's going to come through time and time again, and I'm not going to go through my whole list. But it is about science and policy, and which comes first. And I think that we want to have science before policy. I may be wrong, and I'm just asking and appreciating that this has an effect on staff who are employed under the policy and science place. But I would love to see that we put our committee to be science and policy rather than policy and science. We can own that, we can't staff what to do. I'm just wondering if you had a feeling on that. You're the scientist, one of the scientists in the room, I'm not.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, isn't it? Yes. It seems like a circle, doesn't it? We've got policy there, and then you've got science here, and you've got policy again, and they're all kind of rotating at once. But yes, you do need science to inform policy. So it's a good point, Kate. Yep. Councillor Nicole.
Yes, I can just talk to that one. I'm very much in the camp that I think it should be policy and science, because I think policy is the dominant part of it. Science. Policy is not always just about science. You don't need science for all policy. We need to have policy that enables science. So to put policy first, I think is wrong. Put science first, I believe is wrong, because we don't want to be limited. We don't want our policy to be limited by science. And we don't want to stifle enablement of science in the future. So, and the policy part encompasses a whole lot more than stuff that has a scientific background as well. So I think policy is the dominant part of that group, and along with science that informs the policy.
Thank
That's
you.
my point to say.
Councillor Sunwell.
Look, I'm not sure, are we getting down to a level of detail here? Is that okay?
We are, I think, it's hard to structure this meeting into resolutions and then debate, because I feel like we do need to address all your ones, Kate, which are quite important. So we're going to get into some detail. So if you're
I guess
welcome.
I had one detail, which I could mention now, if that would be helpful. I guess it was around the delegations, and it was the Audit and Risk Subcommittee. I see in the actions register on page 57, an action required was to include authority to release information to the public in delegations to the Audit and Risk Subcommittee. Now, I just wanted not to check that had been, because that isn't listed in those delegations. And that was noted back in September this year. And if we wanted to carry through with that, that would need to be put into the delegations for that committee.
I'll spot it.
Right, so Kate, how are we going to deal with this? You've emailed some things through. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
We
don't want
need
to
to-
raise them individually as motion.
Yeah, why don't we raise them individually?
Well, there's some things that are just wrong, like the map.
Councillor Somerville's
Yeah.
thought first.
I guess they're similar to Kate's and we can do a wash up on all of them. So Councillor Somerville's is
Consistency.
audit and risk consistency and delegation. Kate,
The one of the things I can't fix by motion is the map. I presume that
It was copied and pasted from 2019, the
Yeah.
2019 booklet, so I will fix that. Apologies.
and I've had the other question on the main stem sorted with Anita. Thank you, Anita, last night. So now I'm going to have to go to split screens between my email and. I will eventually get there. The other one, we need motions to change that paper. How do we change it? Or do we agree to changes? I mean, there was that other one about who's the chair of LC.
I see, yeah, that needs to be changed. We've got that the wrong way around, Gretchen. So how do we do that?
Does it have to be a motion on this paper?
yeah, the
Yeah.
chair is round the wrong way, so we might as well we can do a motion and
Yeah, let's do that.
tidy it up.
Just share
And that.
the current motion as
Yeah,
it's
please.
proposed, and then we can start tweaking it.
Okay, that might, yeah.
I haven't seen your proposals.
No,
Councillor
we're
Wilson.
recording them down and then we'll shape them
Okay.
into motion, shall we? So far, we've just got Alan's audit and risk consistency and delegation, and we've got the chair of Regional Land Transport Committee is written incorrectly in the paper as Alexa when it's proposed to be Kate. And it's, yeah, it wasn't meant to be like that.
And you had some.
Oh,
I
Amanda,
was just going to say for ease, so we've got the top motion adopts the attached terms of reference and delegations with or without amendments.
Yeah.
Perhaps we can just bullet point the amendments rather than do
sorry. good
separate
point.
motions.
Yeah, we
Just
can
because otherwise it's going to be a
bullet
full
point
on.
amendments. Good idea, yeah.
And we're
It's
noting
a good
all down
idea
as
for
well.
everyone to hear what Kate's come up with though and see whether they agree. Yeah.
So what was that last one? The chair of Regional
Land
Transport Committee.
Transport Committee is Kate Wilson.
Wilson. Deputy chair is Alexa.
And we have the ability to name the chair and the deputy. We're required to, in fact, even though it's a joint committee. We don't need to write that, sorry. but-
Yeah.
No councillors have chosen to pull out, I presume, of any of the committees, just checking. No, I'm just checking it. Reason, and I'm sorry, I didn't really explain, I'm going to, if I can, I'm going to move that at the Science and Environmental Science and Policy Committee. Now, for years, I think this council has suffered from the policy being, we're not going to increase rates, rather than what the science is needed to do things. And that's why I want to put science first. I want us to have a position where the scientists can come and talk to this council and say, we need more money for this, this and this, and it's up to us to prioritise rather than being policy leading that, that we don't want to put up rates. And so that's where I was coming from. And I think that it's a small, it is absolutely pedantically changing things, but it is an emphasis on us that we are investing in this space now.
I might
and-
take that one separately
Okay.
because rather than an amendment as an actual motion, because it sounds as though we might have differing opinions
Okay,
on that
that's
one,
fine.
which is great, but
Okay,
yep, thanks,
I-
Kate.
sorry,
We've got
thank
that
you for letting
one.
me
Yep.
short. Sorry, and the question of it, the ones that you want to be ex officio on, mainly audit and risk, you could be on all of those subcommittees and working parties ex officio, and that may be helpful to do because at times things may be getting stressful. And so the question is whether you want to have ex officio on every working party as a matter of principle, and then for it doesn't muck up forums and everything.
That's probably not a bad idea for consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And but it gives you the power to have a vote as well.
It can help in quorum situations too.
yeah.
Is this for, sorry, can I just ask a question? Is this for the working groups or electoral committees?
She's on the committees anyway.
Yes,
So
that's
that'd
what,
be
that's
working
what I
parties.
figured, yes, so you're talking about working groups?
Yeah, and audit and risk. So,
Well, she's
Well,
on the
there's a
audit and risk
subcommittee.
committee anyway.
well, no, if she's on the subcommittee, which is absolutely fine, she is, so this was a question for her. She becomes part of, she needs to be there potentially for a quorum. If she's ex officio, she can be there and vote, but not count towards being a requirement for the
That's right.
Well, there's several,
Yeah.
I suppose they're committees rather than subcommittees where I have to be there as well, like civil defence
Yeah.
and emergency management. So we can't say a blanket role that I'm ex officio on a lot of things, because actually I'm required to be a member of some things.
And it was more a question in audit and risk whether she wanted to feel like she had to be there at every meeting
Yeah,
as a member.
yeah, no, it's a good point, because what if I'm away and you need a quorum and
Yeah. It affects that.
I certainly intend to attend, but yeah, it's mainly that one and the working groups, I think.
Are they quorum requirements for working groups?
No, yeah, they're informal, yeah.
But she can go have a
Right,
place
Just
on them.
show up, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
That's a question I don't know.
yeah, that's it. Thank you. What else, Kate? Oh, can we come back to the one where you asked everyone whether they want to be on every
Yeah.
subcommittee or committee even.
I'm happy to, but
But we could revisit membership for example, some people might not want to be on public and active transport committee. But they're welcome to. We're just double checking that everyone does want to. Yep.
There's some that I'm not too bothered by, but I'm happy to be a member of the committees.
Okay, so cool.
Probably just around the quorums and what will the quorum of that committee be reflected as then?
if you're there, you're increasing the quorum, making it harder if you're not intending to attend. That's my,
Yeah.
my
But the
issue.
committee of the whole, it needs to be 6 there in person, doesn't it? So, yeah. So if you've got a public and active transport, that's a committee of the whole, we need that.
Whereas if it's just the named people on there and say 6 or 7 people, you only need half of them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
But
that's,
we're not trying to say
No,
that
I
people
want
shouldn't
everyone
be
to be
part of it.
Clarify, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, in those-
just don't want to show up to public transport and find that half of us aren't interested and aren't there.
Yeah,
You
that's
can't
right.
get a quorum of 6
Yeah,
together.
that's what I'm worried about.
So,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
let's
yeah,
have a core, instead of having committee of the whole, let's have a
Yeah.
core, 6 people or something. So,
Even if it was like 8 or 10, then that just lowers the quorum, if
Exactly.
that makes it a bit
Yeah.
easier.
Well, it
Yeah.
depends when they're actually in the calendar. If that meeting's sequenced with other
Mm.
meetings, then
Mm.
people will all be there. That won't be an issue.
True.
And I think that's the way it has probably been. But like,
Okay.
unless it's separated, public and active transport, I assume that's on a general meeting day.
Well, it seems at this point, everyone's quite happy to be involved. They can take them on there.
Yeah.
I just think that people need to understand that there is a commitment
Mm.
to actually doing that. And if you think that that commitment's going to be hard, then let's not risk the whole committee. Because we're not like the last 3 years where most of it was online could be a quorum. We can't, that's not going to happen
Yeah.
now. So if you think public transport isn't really of much interest to you and you'd be better off putting your time somewhere else, it'd be really good now to know. Which I'm fine about.
Good one. We haven't got that happening, so that's
I'm
what
really-
it sounds of it.
I mean,
Well,
it was 2 hours.
just in reply to that, I myself have an open mind whether buses goes to, the governance structure. I put that on the table, but that doesn't mean that in the interim that I'm not interested in making the buses as good as they can be, and it wouldn't surprise me if others were like that.
And it's really not about whatever your opinion is. It's about
Yeah.
whether you feel that your time is best put there or somewhere else or not.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
Sorry.
Thank you. Right, Kate. let's
Kate,
get
I'm
going.
going to miss 2 out because I just can't bother going there and we'll do it in a year and a half. Page 24, can we have the risks for finance committee, sorry, for audit and risk being all risks, not just financial? to delete the word
Yeah.
risk. Oh, sorry, financial out of there. Double, yeah. I.
That one, Lynn?
To leave the word financial.
Before the word risk into our so first bullet point of this.
Risks.
Is that under audit and risk?
Audit and risk, yeah. So thank you. Because I'm not just picking on environmental science and policy, I would like to see the name changed for environmental, whatever it is, the IN even, to Environmental Community Collaboration Committee. Brian and my committee.
You've got that going up, environmental collaboration.
Community collaboration.
What is it, Kate?
Environmental community collaboration. We can title at the moment anyway.
From.
EI, whatever that was,
Implementation.
implementation, yeah.
Would you consider environmental engagement committee? And that means you're engaging with the staff as well as the community. Because the other ones is quite a handle.
I know, I'm happy, can we come back to that? I'm just going to work through this, otherwise I'll go.
And you've got iwi in there too, so
Yeah.
I'm not quite happy with that.
That community is wider, yeah. The main emphasis is that we're not doing this ourselves. We're not implementing anything ourselves. We can't. We're doing it with our community, and I just want to emphasize that. That's where I was coming from. So I have to think of any ideas. It's not much, yeah. There are two issues under that. We've got in the wording, you've got biosecurity and something else plans being monitored and developed. You've got no development but monitoring biodiversity, but no developing plans. And I couldn't find them anywhere else. There is mention of so there seems to be a mismatch there that something isn't being developed.
Amanda?
So the annual biosecurity operational plan, as I understand it, sits under the regional pest management plan. So the regional pest management plans in the science and policy, or policy and science committee, and then that annual operations implementation goes to the environmental implementation.
Biodiversity.
This is biodiversity.
Oh, yep. So biodiversity, that is in the
Have I written this up
that's
wrong?
in the policy and science committee. We've got
Okay.
develop biodiversity strategies.
But not plans.
And we can add plans if that.
So it's better where those are, so that's.
We haven't got what do you call it, the MPS on biodiversity yet to develop plans, but yeah.
We'll have one Friday.
Yeah, so we can add. we can
Okay,
add
so
that
yeah,
in.
sorry, just a
It's just
question then for
thinking it's
Anita.
Yep.
Shall we
Yes.
put plans in as well as strategy?
My understanding is the MPSIB is going to land on the 15th of.
That's next week.
But your advice would be that plans would be a suitable thing to add in, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. Climate change mitigation options,
So that's in the regional leadership committee.
are they adaptation or, sorry,
So adaptation,
Yeah.
sat in
No,
the safety and
mitigation.
resilience. Yeah, so adaptation sat in the safety and resilience committee, and mitigation is listed in the regional leadership committee.
oh, was it? Okay, I missed it.
It is bullet point.
I was looking screens.
Yeah, so provide oversight of ORC's climate change mitigation responses and regional strategies and plans.
Sorry, responses is one. I didn't think that was us planning for mitigation, but I'll go back then. I apologise.
What was that
on
one?
that.
Sorry, do we need to put something?
No,
Okay, thanks.
on that one, apparently.
Could we have the name change, the committee name change, down with the other committee name?
Okay. Right, yeah, we'll
Yeah,
put
yeah,
the
that's fine.
name changes together for consistency in a different resolution. Thanks.
Thank you. The question about active transport responsibilities and the
Oh.
PAT.
You'll do this.
Yeah.
Have we had any thinking on that?
No, not since last night, but what I would suggest is that the committee could consider that and actually put advice back up to council
Yeah.
on what that might look like, rather than staff trying to guess what that looks like at the moment.
Okay, and equally, we can do that with the regional land transport.
I think
committee.
again, I think it'd be good for the regional transport leadership there. Whatever that committee is, to consider that those additional mandates and then bring it back to council for approval.
Fine, thank
So
you.
because then you're taking views of the rest of the committee as well.
Thank you. Cool.
Is that all?
That's what I'm gonna deal with today.
Okay,
So the last one that I added, Councillor Wilson, was add creation of plans to biodiversity and regional leadership committee. Was there one?
No, it's fine.
Is that it? Okay. And then I
Amanda?
moved-
Sorry, it was, Liz, it was the Science and Policy Committee
Oh,
would do
sorry.
the biodiversity plans.
thanks, Amanda.
The science and
Or
policy.
policy.
Wherever that lands.
Thanks very much, Kate, for your eagle eye on these things. Just trying to remember if there were any other really important ones. I think that's it. Just noting the important matter there that's discussed around public and active transport committee and potential for subcommittees or committee in the future as well. But that this council is really keen to take a collaborative approach from PAs and the Kotahi in this area, but to do that and be collaborative, we need some time to work with those parties. So we're signalling our strong intention, I guess, is that's where we're heading. And we will hopefully be able to adopt a resolution along those lines shortly. Okay, any other comments then before we start addressing these resolutions?
I just
Alan.
wanted to check, did the meeting wish to consider that suggestion of adding that delegation to the audit and risks? I don't think that's listed there yet.
Oh, sorry, Ellen. Yep. Thanks for that wash up reminder.
Can I just ask for clarification on that one, Alan? I mean, I was just been looking through, but could you identify what that delegation is again?
If you look on page 57,
Yeah.
the last box includes recommendation. There it says include authority to release information to the public in the delegations to future audit and risk subcommittee when adopting terms of reference, which is what we're doing.
Amanda, yeah,
Yeah, just the reason that that wasn't included in the draft delegations was because there was the guidance that none of the committees would have delegations. And so that's really an authority to do something without coming back to council for approval first, which is why it's not there. I wasn't disregarding the consideration. So I think if you're going to add that kind of delegation to audit and risk, you're potentially opening up the discussion about whether you give the other committees delegations.
And I agree with that. I think this is sort of a substantial change, which is sort of coming in at the last minute, even though it's there. Ellen, it's sort of, I agree with that you picked something up that's quite important, but I'm just wondering about whether we actually put it in right now without further exploring it. Can we hold that back and review it perhaps and come back?
it seems as though it's more of a principle for all committees, isn't it? So good spotting though. Councillor.
Yeah, and I thought the initial one was around releasing information about the draft annual report and the like. So I just wonder if we actually do need a paper on it around going back to that audit and risk committee meeting when that was decided and the rationale behind it before we made it, so the council understands the rationale behind that decision and specifically what it relates to. So I'd be happy for that to be left off.
So there's an issue around who and when we release information to the public.
Yeah.
It could be wider than audit and risk, but we've addressed something specific to audit and risk in the past. So you've noted that issue. We may not need a resolution to come back and readdress this, but we've also signalled that at any time, and it says again in the paper that we can revisit these matters. So that's always open to us. So it sounds like it's a bigger issue you've opened up here, Ellen, and it's an important one. So thank you for doing that.
No, that's
Did you
fine.
want to
As
say
long as
anything
we've
else?
considered it, and if that's our decision, that's absolutely fine.
Right, so Amanda's noted that and we'll deal with that in due course. Thanks. We probably don't need a resolution. Okay, so we got quite a lot there. Liz, you've
I just
comfortable?
say one quick thing. I'm sorry to do this. The photographers in there.
Oh, yeah.
Suggested we would start sending people out.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to pop out first? or
Well, why
just-
don't we just start here? I'll go first and Go around the table.
Thank you.
Hopefully do
Nice
this
ones.
vote.
Yep, okay, thanks.
Moving on.
I think I'm comfortable.
Get these motions out of the
Get
way
the
first.
motions out of the way.
She's happy to, but yeah, it's all right.
And probably just going back to quorums, again, you've increased the size of the audit and risk from 4 members to now 6 members. So will that change the quorum required?
If you go ex officio, it will drop it down again.
Yeah. To be
Well,
honest, I wanted to bring councillor Callagher into that because of his skills.
Yeah, I'm just asking about the
Yeah.
quorum part, so that's going to change that. So, and again, it goes back to the ex officio part, is that
What was the quorum before, Kevin?
be 3?
Was it? And are you suggesting it be a bigger quorum or less?
Well, that's
Slightly bigger than it was before. So if you feel that that's inappropriate, that's something to raise now.
But yeah, if Gretchen was ex officio,
Yeah,
that would
it's
still be
fine.
4.
yeah, which I'm comfortable with. I'm just saying,
Okay,
you're not, I'm not worried about it, but I'm just saying.
Yeah,
that's-
no,
that's
it's
the
better that
change.
I'm ex officio so that there's a
Yeah.
smaller number.
Yeah.
Quorum is usually based around 50%, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the
If it's
standard
an even
ratio.
number,
So.
and then
we
it
can
goes
just
up
say-
if it's an odd number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kate, yeah.
No, that-
Sorry,
I-
this
I-
is not got much structure
Yeah,
today.
No, I'm getting really concerned. The question of ex officio is more about you managing, and I don't want to say whether I
Yeah.
which side I'm taking, but it's about you, but it does have a consequential effect on quorum, so.
Yeah,
I
I
really
understood
want
that,
to make that
Kate.
choice.
Yeah, thank you. No, exactly.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things that you need to do, and sometimes they might take
Yeah.
preference. So yeah, you're right.
I have my-
Thanks. No, it's good. Right, so we got notes the report and adopts the attached terms of reference with the amendments. Sorry, I'm just looking where you put the ones that we'll need to
So then I've got
vote on
these down
separately,
here,
or
the
down the
name
bottom.
changes. Yeah.
And the implementation.
Do any of these need to change? Approves.
The Environmental
Oh, yeah,
Information
that's all
Committee is going to get
good,
down below.
Yeah. Thanks, Kevin. So shall we take the first 8 then, and then the next? Anyone have any problem with that? No. All right, then, does somebody care to move the first 8 recommendations?
I'm going to ask one, the integrated catchment one. I'm going to ask that you make sure that you've got the FMU lead
Oh,
and the integrated catchment for us. So
sorry,
At
yeah.
the moment, you have, if it's you and Lloyd, you've got Lloyd in there as one of the leads on Catlins. But again, I think if you're working in a different area, and I don't know what the next one off the cab will be.
Sorry, Kate. Should have done that one, that's right. I would be happy for it to be you and Lloyd on that, and yeah.
It's
If that makes sense to everyone
Suzanne,
else, I'm
number
really
6.
happy with
That's
that.
for the
because
Catlins one.
For the
That's for the
integrated,
Catlins.
No, it's not, at the moment, Catlins is. the
Oh, it
first one, it's
kind of is,
integrated
yeah.
catchment.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
are we saying those 2 people plus the FMU lead?
I think it'd be really good to have 2 people on there plus the FMU lead.
It's only. I think there's only room for 2 councillors on that committee, if I remember rightly.
Or at least one of them being there, so
because we don't want to dominate the
No, yeah.
stakeholders that are in that grouping as well. That's
I'm not
okay.
happy to have one that's moving and that it becomes the FMU lead for the next one, because I think as
Yeah.
we develop the framework, you want to be thinking who's your next one going to be.
So you could have 2 as alternates plus FMU lead.
Yeah. Sorry to
Because
be
one of
complicated.
you is the FMU lead, then you have to switch.
Yeah, I just think if it was Lloyd and Kate, that would make things straightforward. We can always come back and change it as well. It seems straightforward to me.
Is this on number
This
6?
group, is it a long-term group? Rich?
Yeah, it's an amendment to replacing the chair with and the deputy with Kate and Lloyd. On the integrated catchment management working group.
Yeah.
It seems sensible.
Is-
Yeah.
Is it a long-term group or is it just set things up?
I don't know. It's like a lot of working groups. They sometimes do their job, don't they? But
Yeah.
We don't, I'm not sure at this moment. At the moment, it's setting things up and making sure it goes well and sensibly, but it could well have a job that's beyond that. I don't know. Councillor Malcolm.
Yes, my only point to that would be, it's a bit like under Land and Water Governance Group, when you're dealing specifically with an FMU, you bring in the FMU councillor because of the knowledge of that particular area. So if currently you're working on the Catlins, well, the people down in the Catlins, that's really good, but you then move to North Otago or you move to Central Otago, and those people may not have the knowledge to get that integrated plan going. So that's why I'm saying, if it was only two, if it just had, if you just if you were coming in up, if you just called the council deputy chair plus the FMU councillor.
Does, I don't know if Anita's been listening to that, but I think it's a shaping up of overall strategy in this rather than a from FMU to FMU type of.
Yeah, I've got the reference in front of me. So it is shaping up that broader piece, but with the Catlins as the pilot.
Yeah.
And so it says that the term for the working group is from the first meeting until such time as the wider collaboration forum for developing the Catlins camp is in place. It's expected that will occur before 30th of June 2023. So at this stage, it is envisaged as a shorter term working group.
Yeah.
And then that will come back to council.
Thank you. Yeah, so we could come back if it changes from that, but it seems like Lloyd and Kate are the right people.
There's another one, team.
Sorry, yeah, we're getting there.
Or Lloyd and the FMU rep, which is Kate. And
But it specifically says the Catlins, and that's the job at the moment.
Okay.
I'd actually like to move that change to be Lloyd and Gary Kelleher. Because I'm just again looking at the workload basis, that's quite a major workload right at the start, and I would see that Councillor Kelleher would have space there to do that. He's gone.
Well, I think because as you're going around to doing these integrated catchment plans, you're going to have to set up group for each one going through. So I think you need to have a constant, which may or may not be like to myself. And then I think they should be partnered with the local FMU rep or someone with connections to the area. So
maybe we should go back.
And whether you started off, there'll be no reason you couldn't have.
Oh, cool, we'll do that.
Start with.
So it's Lloyd and the FMU councillor perhaps might, except you've just moved something, Kevin, and you'd need a seconder for that.
Gary, second.
You better tell him.
Oh, yeah, I just gave you a job.
So we were just having a discussion, Gary, that for the integrated catchment management working group, we just read the terms of reference, which are that it does the general broad scoping of what integrated catchment management might look like from this council. It has a whole range of stakeholders on there. We've got 2 places on it along with them. And at the moment, it says that it's working specifically with the Catlins because that's our model. Doesn't say anything beyond that. That's its job, and then it finishes. But of course, it's a working group. We could revisit it later on. Kevin suggested that you and Lloyd should be the reps on that. But prior to that, we've been discussing as well that perhaps it should be Lloyd and an FMU councillor that's relevant to whichever catchment we're working on at the moment. So Kevin actually did a motion. He said he'd like to put forward that it was you and Lloyd. So he'd need to have a seconder, and that's where we're at the moment.
And the photographer's waiting.
Yes, and we're taking ages. Thank you. So if anyone would like to second Kevin's motion, then this.
I'm happy to second, providing Gary's comfortable with the position.
I'm okay. It's fine.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that might be a second, separate resolution then.
So we're not going to treat this the same way as we're doing the other amendments.
It's just an amendment.
Yeah.
So
Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to figure out where this fits. Yep, amendments, cool, yep, rightio.
So we don't need a seconder on this.
No, don't.
Oh,
It's just an amendment like we've done, the ones from Kate.
rightio. So we don't need, we have got a mover and a seconder though, so it's its own separate resolution now.
But we,
Yeah, ask for clarification.
he can.
Yeah, we need to.
It's not-
You can,
it's
oh,
not
now it's
rational
gone.
to-
They can deal with that as an
Yeah, he
amendment.
can. Or just. pull- pull
Okay.
this,
Thanks.
motion.
He's disappeared anyway.
What are the implications of this exactly? I'm finding it difficult to follow everything that's going on here at the moment. I'm putting down the fact that I'm new.
No, it's a really difficult process. I had encouraged people to circulate these in advance as resolutions so that we could have dealt with this before now, but we're dealing with it now because some of them are really important.
And the process right up to now has been very good. But it's sort of it's being a little bit messed up a little bit.
We are nearly finished. We've got everything there. Kevin just wanted to address a specific amendment to who was on things. Brian,
Am I able to speak to that motion?
No, well,
yeah, we're just saying that it's that it should probably be treated the same as all the other amendments that are there, and Kevin's not here to withdraw his motion, but
Yeah.
it'll be was.
Okay, well,
Mm.
I mean, my view, no disrespect, to Gary, that it should be the FMU councillor, and then the Catlins that happens to be Kate. And Gary will no doubt have his opportunity in his patch. That's where I think it should be. Because we've only got room for 2 people, and that sets up a good system. That's my view.
It's actually myself and Lloyd, so you have got an FMU one, and the
That's-
subsequent papers, it does say
Yeah.
it's joint. FMU.
So that's where I think it should be. I don't know why we've changed that thinking.
Leah,
Yeah, I'm sort of in agreement that either it's Lloyd and Kate for now until we come to that end point of the Catlins and then figure it out from there, or we make it, yeah, Lloyd and the whoever is the FMU
Yeah.
councillor. I would just think we'd need to decide how we decide where there's multiple FMU councillors.
Yeah.
Which one is decided as the
Yeah.
appointment, which, doesn't need to be.
So I
big deal,
signal
but-
that I'll be moving that motion.
so is that not what we've got up here?
no, it is. It's
It
just
is.
that
We've got another motion.
we might need to
That's
take
not
them
quite
separately. Yeah, okay. Rightio. So maybe we'll take all of these separately then. No, that's okay. Go back up to the top. Thank you. Number 1 is notes, the report. Somebody care to move that? Councillor Somerville, seconded Councillor McCall, all in favour. Aye. Against. Carried. Number 2 adopts the attached terms of reference with the following amendments, which you can see up there and we've discussed. Somebody care to move that? Councillor Scott, seconded Councillor Weir, all in favour. Aye. Against. Carried. Next one, 3, that the ORC Chair, CE and co-chairs Public and Active Transport take a lead in discussions with DCC and KLDC as well as Wakato Tahi on establishment of joint member subcommittees, etc.
Can I just speak to the public transport and active?
Yeah, we'll have a
transport
mover and a
motion?
seconder and then you can speak
I'll
to
move.
it. You're moving, you're seconding Councillor Weir, now you can, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognise this is a genuine attempt to lift the focus on passenger transport and active transport across the region. But in particular, our focus is Dunedin and Queenstown. We're reaching out to both councils to work collaboratively together to lift the standard of passenger transport in both in both areas. The focus on active transport will come over time, and also the connectivity across the region will become a focus over time as well.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's a really key moment for this council in signalling the strong desire to work collaboratively with those partners. So thank you for raising that, Councillor Noon. Anyone else on that one before we put it? Okay, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Number 4, I think we've got 5 here. Agrees that a paper be brought to public and active transport by 30th of April. Yep. Moved Councillor Wilson, seconded Councillor Weir. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. And then the next one becomes 5, approves the list of council working groups and membership of those groups with the following amendments. Right, so we got to FMU councillor written down there, but actually we had Kevin putting it as Gary, so I would have expected that we saw Gary written there. Yeah, okay, thanks. So we did have a mover and a seconder for that one actually already, didn't we? Thanks, can we remember them? Yep.
Madam Chair, can I just ask a question?
You're welcome to speak to it now, yep.
Yeah, if I can speak to it, given I'm named specifically, and
Sure.
because some councillors have spoken against the motion, and the motion was put on my willingness to be the name put forward. Some councillors have spoken against it, so I think I will now withdraw my willingness to be that name.
Thank you. Which brings us, it gets confusing then. But the mover perhaps would withdraw it then.
Apologies to the mover. and
Because
seconder.
the person isn't available.
Happy to withdraw it.
Thank you. Which then means that perhaps we could change it to or I'd move that we change it to FMU councillor
Yes.
and seconded by
FMU
councillor Weir.
FMU or agree, councillor? Or is there a councillor assigned to every FMU? Yeah, that's fine. then.
Oh, there's more than one.
I
No,
just think
that's
Dunedin was
confusing.
like the whole-
Yeah.
That was my question of how do you
Yes,
decide
there's
what
more
to
than
do.
one.
Yeah, there are.
So maybe, sorry, maybe it does make sense that we just say Kate at this point. Yeah, sorry. Oh,
We could have both, in brackets, FMU councillor Kate. Otherwise, we're trying to start.
Yeah, that's.
we are, but the terms of reference of this is specifically for the Catlins as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
If it's in brackets, FMU.
Okay,
councillor.
in brackets, FMU councillor. Thank you.
It's
We're
not
getting
Kate,
there.
it's Gary, it's
Oh,
FMU
I'm
councillor.
happy with that as the mover. Seconder was happy with that, whoever that was. Yep, thanks, councillor Weir.
Second on that.
That was myself moving and seconding councillor Weir.
Okay, thank you.
All in favour?
Question?
Oh, too late, sorry, Kevin. Pull it because we need to keep moving. All in favour? Aye, against? Carried.
And noted.
Oh, you're against and
Yeah.
noting that. Thanks, Kevin. Okay. Right, we're up to number 6, which says 7. Approves the list of council. Oh, no. I
don't know where
Sorry,
we've
no,
lost one in the
7's
award.
gone, isn't it?
So what's this one?
Yeah, the naming one went down
I
below.
moved all the
Oh, I
down
see.
ones down here. And note that on all the number 3 and 4 talk about the public and active transport committee when we haven't actually agreed to change their name yet.
Yeah, yeah. Slightly wrong. 6, approves of that with or without amendments. So yes, we can do that one, can't we? Somebody care to move that then? Councillor Metham and second councillor Noon, all in favour? Aye, against, carried. 7 confirms the territorial authority nominations to the Regional Land Transport Committee. There's actually more than territorial. Yeah, no, we can only confirm them, but there's other ones there as well. Is there a technicality that means we're only
Yeah.
confirming territorial?
External. Number.
Yeah, because there's others.
Second.
Moved councillor Callender, and seconded councillor Malcolm. All in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Next one then is numbered something, but I think we all take them separately. Agrees to change the name of the Public Transport Committee to Public and Active Transport Committee. Mover, councillor Noon, seconded councillor Somerville.
As such.
Yeah, it just needs to, it does need to be revisited because our formal decision of the previous council wasn't that, so this just ticks that off. Rightio, all in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Next one then, agrees to change the name of Policy and Science Committee to Science and Policy Committee. Over, Kate's moving.
It's actually environmental science and policy. Yeah.
Thanks, Liz. So Kate moved, Alexa seconded, all in favour? Aye. Against? No. So I think it's carried. Yep, you don't get to speak once it's carried. Yep.
You were against, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like my vote.
Agrees, oh, you want it recorded, sorry, is that what you're saying? Okay. Thank you.
Is it the Science and Environmental Policy Committee, or is that just that wording? I know what you want to change it to, Kate, and that's passed, but this, because it was the Environmental Policy and Science Committee. I don't know, does that mean what you wanted to say? Yeah, cool, that's all right.
Yep, and the next one agrees to change the name of environmental implementation to environmental and community environmental community collaboration committee. Sorry, Elliot. You're moving? Yep. Seconded councillor Wilson. Anyone wants to speak? Yep.
I just reckon that we've got community collaboration, like if you look at the terms of reference of this one versus the Science and Policy Committee, we've got stuff that we would really, really want to be collaborating with the community on in there. And I think that calling the implementation one, the community collaboration one, sort of lessens the community collaboration that we would want to have in the science and policy stuff and sort of throughout our work. So I would just keep it as the implementation.
It's actually, it's an interesting point.
All right, yeah, we can discuss it, but I mean, you can debate it, but we're needing to wrap this up. So anyone else want to say anything on that?
Just that I agree with Elliot, and it also doesn't specifically include iwi, which it should if we have community, because they are different.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll put that all in favour.
Aye.
Against? No. Might need to have it. Well, I think it's lost actually.
Again, that's right.
I don't know, well, that's to be, I've swung both ways.
Okay, sorry. Oh, sorry, my voice has stopped, but it looks like we're going to need a division because it's, yeah. It seems as though it was even to some people.
Call for division.
Yes, a division, thank
Okay,
you.
Councillor Forbes,
No.
Councillor Kelleher. Did you say? Sorry. Councillor Malcolm,
No.
Councillor McCall,
No.
Councillor Metham,
Yes.
Councillor Noon,
Aye.
Councillor Scott.
I've got no idea. Promise
I have to say yes or no.
Did I? I did promise,
No,
so yes,
No, yes or no?
yes.
Councillor Somerville,
No.
Councillor Ware,
Yes.
yes, and yes, and Chair Robertson.
Against.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it is even.
It is even.
It can't be. 1,
No, it's
2,
not.
3,
It's
4,
not.
5. It was lost.
Oh, that's
No, it's fine. I'll try again in a year and a half.
okay, strictly lost. Thank you.
Sorry they've held you up, so maybe.
Can we grab our lunch boxes?
Oh, gosh, no, it's not lunch yet. Lunch is at 12. Oh, sorry, it is lunch yet, sorry. Time is flying. Yeah, we've got a 12:15 lunch break scheduled. We have taken way too much time already and we need to be away by 3 o'clock. So we're gonna need to have a working lunch, I think.
Yeah, I think
So in a second, I will formally adjourn. We will get our lunch. We will take it's 5 minutes to do anything you need to do and bring your lunch back. So at this point, I move to adjourn. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Forbes, seconded Councillor Kelleher, all in favour? Aye, against, carried. We are adjourned. Thank you. Anyone like? More? Okay. So the meeting open, and just double checking, do we have councillor Laws joined us? No, okay, thank you. Moving on to consideration of meeting schedule for 2023. So that's been circulated. We have a mover, we have a seconder, councillor Noon. And any discussion? Amanda, did you want to?
Sorry, could we just make one tiny amendment? We'd like to move the October Finance Committee to the 22nd of November series of meetings. That was one that, just to allow them enough time to do the quarterly reporting and then come to finance. So it's a really minor change.
The mover's happy with that, and the seconder is as well. Brian, you wanted to talk?
Yeah, I get a bit frustrated with the calendar that we have. I'm just opening it up, but my question is, what are the principles that have been, and how did we come up with this calendar? Like, there's a heck of a lot of meetings that are like 2 weeks apart. And like, it makes it difficult, you know, as a councillor, if you want to take any time off. I have no complaints about the amount of work. It's just how free, you know, that. So what are the principles with so many meetings 2 weeks apart?
So through the chair, the principles that informed the council calendar, where we reflected on the feedback from last training, that the fortnightly committee meeting throughout the whole year was quite a heavy workload, both for councillors but also for staff.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah.
So we reflected on that. So we started with the principle of quarterly committee meetings and monthly council meetings as the sort of the base for it. And then what we looked at doing is doing committee meetings every second month rather than every month. So for the last training, we had committee meetings essentially every month on the fortnight, and then we had council meetings every month. So what we've done is we've left the monthly council meetings in there, and we've put the committee meetings cycle in fortnightly. Every second month.
So you've reduced it.
Yes, so we've essentially taken out 4 rounds of about 4 rounds of committees throughout the year. We've taken them out and consolidated around those every second month committee meetings, but keeping those regular council meetings in, because of course from a delegations perspective, council often is where we need the more regular meetings for signing off decisions or, you know, out of cycle things. But what we would undertake to do is to see whether this is working for everybody, and if it's that we're very mindful that for the first 6 months of next year, the Land and Water Regional Plan is going to loom very large in terms of a priority around decision making. So we're likely to have to add extra meetings in. If there's other things that we're adding heaps of extra meetings in, we probably look to bring this back to you middle of the year to revisit it.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Gary, yeah.
I said 2 questions, and one was that it looks like, you know, January is completely free. Is that also workshops and stuff as well, or will there be stuff that fills that up?
So at the current planning, we try to keep January, actually in terms of other principles, we try to keep January free, and we also try to keep school holidays free, recognising commitments you know, around the table. So currently there is the visit to Port Otago for the new councillors scheduled for that last week of January. And the rescue helicopter would also like to invite new councillors out there, so we may try and schedule that around the same time. Land and Water Regional Plan.
Yes, just going to say that we've just received today a bill that's just landed that we will likely need to submit on. That's posted on the 3rd of February. And we've got the RM reform stuff that changes. So it's likely that subgroup will, unfortunately, January at some point. But it'll be late January. I'm out of the country until the 3rd. So.
Well, I've also asked maybe if we could arrange a manner-to-manner meeting towards the end of January. Have that conversation with you, shared that with Gretchen, and I think the future for local government is coming up too. Submission. So actually, the end of January will be very busy, and even though Amanda's suggesting this is entirely for your benefit, council members, it's really as much for staff benefit in terms of not having them to do too much work in the first half of January.
Yeah, that's good.
And then the other question was just when we have those days where we've got 3 committees lined up to to meet, are those meetings quite short then if they're all being, and are we, I guess I'm wondering, are we losing much by having them only quarterly rather than more regular as it was in the past?
Yes, so the committee meetings have always been quarterly over the previous training. We just had them on the way we scheduled them was slightly more, we had more contact time. So what we're going to try and do is spread that business out so that we can get through a committee cycle in the 2 days. But we obviously will need to revisit that in the lead up, and councillors who were here last training will, it is a bit of a balancing act, because if we allow 3 hours, often the committee takes 3 hours, but if we've only got an hour, sometimes it only takes an hour. So there's a bit of give and take there, and the business needs change as well in terms of decision making versus noting papers and all of that. So we do our best to juggle it. But we keep in touch with the co-chairs in the lead up to a committee. If it looked like we didn't have enough time, we'd work with everyone to try and get more time.
Yeah, I mean, linked in with this calendar is, the time that we spend on a committee, and ideally we do it, efficiently. And, for example, today's meeting where we've got 587 pages or whatever. Councillor Medman's previously come up with some ideas about, how can we improve our agenda format? We can conduct our business a lot more efficiently. It might be simple things like going back to having appendices, so you get two reports. One, if you want to read more, you refer to the back appendices. All of a sudden you're focused on 150 pages as opposed to, you're not having to fight your way all the way through it. And there'll be other things, so tied with this calendar, just encourage some thinking in that direction.
Yeah, look, I mean, what you're saying right now, Brian, is obviously music to my ears, because the last thing I want to be doing is giving you 1,000-page agendas, which I think we had one of earlier in the year, and I was quite amazed. But the danger also is that the really important information gets lost, and all chief executives should be held to account for that. So if we can be more efficient in our reporting, and we will try to be, but that change is challenging when you're not used to it, and it just takes a bit of time to adjust. So we'll endeavour to try and cut back on the amount of reporting, save staff time, I have to say. And we're also trying to get the council to spend more time on strategic issues, where in my view we haven't spent enough time. So, but again, this is an evolution rather than a revolution.
Since my name was mentioned there, look, I'm quite happy to volunteer to help out with just reformatting agenda and board papers. I'm a fellow of the Institute of Directors. I've got the experience and the knowledge to help out here, so I'd just like to volunteer.
Really appreciate that. That'll be really good.
Thank you. Anyone else want to raise anything on this paper, comment on the timetable? No. Got a mover and a seconder then. We'll put it all in favour. Aye. Against. Carried. Thank you. The next one is a paper on a review of our open actions, the public ones from 2019 to 22. It looks at what those actions are, and we have a recommendation to note the progress against them, but also sets forth a proposed way of dealing with actions for this triennium. So Amanda, did you want to say anything else around this one?
No, nothing else apart from what is in the paper, but also just that we're open to how council wants to treat these. This was a recommendation, but it's not set in stone.
Sure, yeah. So really this paper is about the forward-looking part of this, which is how we treat actions going forward. We are short of time today to go through every action that's in there. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Look, I do appreciate we're short of time, and I would love to see this paper coming back up to us, because I think there is some more subtlety to some of the motions. One, for example, is why, and possibly I should have done the last 2 papers ago, is the one on page 5 or 50 of our agenda. It's one that refers to the Finance Committee, where we established a harbour facilities and management plan in collaboration with iwi and Port Otago. Port Otago have taken that over, but we've got absolutely no input from, and I'd like to be nominated at some point. councillor Scott to that. Or maybe we can alternate bring councillor Mepham. Perhaps not now, but can we have this put back at the first council meeting where we can input some of those ideas and suggestions? I've just been having the side discussion about one on page 6 on citizen science, which we just haven't got a time frame. I don't want to leave it till quarter's way gone to deal with, nor do I want to deal with something in 2025 that we should be dealing with earlier. So if we can have a chance to input into that, Becca, and bring it up at the next council meeting, I'd be very happy. And then therefore move just to number 1 and ask it to come back.
I'll just check with that sounds a reasonable approach, that we revisit the actual detail of actions, not do it today, but we do make time to look at them again. And that's really what we're asking. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. You've given me an action to deal with these actions, which is quite funny, actually, Quentin. But in any case, it does make sense because, look, firstly, I'm really pleased that Amanda and Liz have pulled these up.
Yeah, me
Because you can see they haven't disappeared. We've not just pretended that, they're no longer actions that are important for us to do. But yeah, look, we just need to tighten them up and make sure that they have deadlines which make sense for you.
Right, thank you. So then, on, I guess, anyone else want to ask any questions or raise any matters?
Just to comment on just what you've done there, Chair, is so C will come back with an update of where things are at on that action. So if there's something
Action on the actions.
yes. So you're going to get an update that everything's ticked off good or bad.
It could be colour coded
Yeah,
and
whatever.
brought into a format for us to address them rather
Perfect.
than just a blank table.
Lovely. Thank you.
So that would be the intention there. Rightio, so there are recommendations. So you're going to move those, Councillor Callagher, second. I can second. Thank you, Councillor Forbes. We'll take all those together.
Sorry.
Oh,
Are we doing, did you see the recommendation?
nope, we're doing the recommendations, yep. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carry. Yeah, okay. Okay, we have passed those, but Amanda's got the action there as well, and that's all fine. Thank you. Otago Lakes Management Review Report is the next one. So we have authors coming forth. Thank you, James and Andrea. And Amanda as well. Thank you. So you've had this report circulated through you. It's in the agenda. And I understand at this point, oh, you got your mouth full, sorry. Shall we do it?
Working lunches are quite challenging, sorry.
Just logging for your
Madam
guidance on how we'll introduce this paper.
Yes, so well, firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the work that's gone into this paper. On last Friday, I received a letter from the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment, his name the Honourable Simon Upton, and that actually shared some concerns around our management of our deepwater alpine lake. And over the last couple of days, staff and some councillors have been working on a response to that letter. But essentially, it does highlight that that council might consider some actions around taking a little bit more leadership in this area, because that's the advice that we've received from Simon Upton. So I just wanted to start before we address this paper just by sharing that there's been a bit of activity happening, and that in my conversations with the chair that we might consider pulling together a working group that might consider our management of those lakes which may ultimately align with some other parties in terms of partnership, particularly iwi, but also potentially other agencies, and with a view to trying to progress our monitoring of the water quality in those deep water alpine lakes in a different way from the way that we're regarding this paper today. So that was the way I thought I'd just introduce this paper.
Yeah.
That's right with you, Chair Warren.
So yeah, no, it's really helpful that you have brought that out really transparently, that we have received a letter. We absolutely share the I guess the feeling of the Parliamentary Commissioner that these are extremely important water bodies, Taonga water bodies. We're incredibly blessed to have lakes of this caliber. They're international icons in Otago, and this council takes that responsibility really seriously. And yeah, this paper is, I guess, a reflection of the fact that we really care in this space, and we've started. Well, we haven't started a process because this has been ongoing, but we have signalled that we need to lift the level of, the spotlight onto this area, and we can't actually do that alone. And we're not doing it alone currently either. And this paper again looks at many different initiatives that are going on in the space already. Some of them are funded and supported through ORC, but many that aren't. It's an area where everyone is interested in, everyone's getting behind, and what can we do in this space? It's really fantastic to have interest nationally as well in the space, and gives us, I guess, an opportunity that goes even beyond what we've got here in this paper today, which is really important. So thank you for bringing that forth, Pim. James or Andrea, slightly different start from what we were kind of initially anticipating with this paper, but I think it's important to give you a chance as well to come back to where we are with this paper and the report that we've received. So if you did want to say anything, you're welcome.
I think we're happy to take the paper as read. If you would like a brief introduction, I'd be happy to give that.
Yeah, give us a brief introduction. That would be really good. Thank
Sure.
you.
So this review grew out of a request from council in May 2021 to look at the lakes, in particular lakes management, to improve environmental and amenity values of lakes, to look at how we were managing that. That was later split up into two parts. A stage one, which was looking at, is there a case for a lakes strategy? And if yes, what should that strategy look like, would be stage two. And so this report here is stage one. Is there a case for a lakes strategy? That was contracted out to LandPro, and they've given us this very comprehensive report that looks across the breadth of management documents and management systems that we have in Otago for looking at lakes, and spoke to a lot of stakeholders as well. And the keystone recommendation from this paper is, yes, a lakes strategy would be a good idea. And they've also provided us with, as well as that keystone recommendation, another 42 recommendations that we can look at for improving lakes management. And it's now up to council to consider how they would like to progress with those recommendations, in particular the recommendation for a strategy. And in the course of this, we've had a quick first look at those recommendations and seen how our existing work plans align with those. And we do have some reasonable progress on 26, I think it was, of those recommendations already. And there are a number of the other recommendations that we also think at first blush seem like good ideas. So in that case, it's over to council to consider how you'd like to progress with those.
Perhaps James or Andrea talk about what is currently in the budget, I suppose, just.
Oh, for sure.
Just specifically.
What we have budgeted at the moment is the scoping process. So stage one, this report has taken roughly half of the available budget at the moment. And we anticipate that the rest of that budget is targeted at looking at what a lake strategy should include. The actual development of that strategy and the implementation of that strategy is not yet budgeted.
Okay. Let's open it up. Councillor Forbes.
Thank you for this. It's great. And thank you to Land Pro and you for giving us this. It's a great piece of work. Can we not just get into it and make a strategy? Do we really need to go through this whole scoping to scope to plan to plan to plan? Can we take the 45 recommendations and get moving on them? Or do we have to do more?
We have to make sure about the overlaps with our existing work plan. I think that would be the biggest part of the scoping. Would you agree with that? We've got a number of things underway.
Yes, we're just implementing the approach that was approved by or requested by council last year, so that can be changed.
It just seems that it's quite long-winded compared to now we know what we didn't know, we know what we suspected, and now we know it. It feels to me like we could get moving on something in a far more timely fashion.
Okay,
Yeah, look, I mean, at the moment, we've had a priority that all of you are aware of, and that's our land and water regional plan. And that's taken a huge amount of staff resource and a lot of your time, actually. What we're keen to do is to make sure that we develop a strategy which actually gels with that land and water regional plan, so it doesn't contradict it in any way, and actually, in some ways, that they'll ultimately work together. So I do take your comments, Alexa. I think if the council had the mind to increasing some of the funding for this development of the strategy, we could move it forward. But we still have to keep in mind that for most of 2023, our main priority is going to be the land and water regional plan, and there's obviously, as I've just explained, there's obviously overlap between those two strategies. I think what's equally important is if we, so firstly, James has already explained, we've actually made good progress on quite a number of those recommendations already. So we can certainly report back on those 43 recommendations over the next 12 months and further progress that we've made. And then if we have a priority around, for instance, deep alpine lakes, for instance, we might choose just to pull together a work plan for that part of the what might be an implementation phase, so that we can bring forward some of the actual implementation of what might ultimately be in a strategy. So from my way of thinking, this could happen in parallel, so that we're not waiting another 3 years before we start anything.
Councillor Somerville.
Councillor Malcolm might have got in before.
Oh, you might get on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. That was really interesting reading that. And I'm really uncertain about the best way forward, which is why I'm interested in this discussion. Of course, we want the best for our lakes. And one of the points in the report, of course, is that there's such huge variety in our lakes. And I guess that makes me think, well, is an overall lake strategy the best way to go, or can we cater for that variety better by going through our regional plans, which is, of course, what we're working on at the moment. I also wonder, in view of the letter Pim was referring to about the alpine lakes, whether a better way forward with looking after those is to look at a strategy involving our neighbouring regional councils as well, So as I say, I'm uncertain whether proceeding with that Otago Lake strategy would be the best thing, and particularly taking into view those caveats that's noted on the report, and on page 64 as well. So I'm have a very open mind and very pleased to hear other thoughts from around the room entirely.
Do you want to comment, James?
The answer may be both and.
Yeah.
I think we've currently got underway, which Andrea can speak much more intelligently to, the integrated catchment management program. And there's a lot that's going to happen through that about management of particular places and possibly particular lakes, sort of depending on what communities want in terms of specific management. I still think, and of course with the land and water plan, there's going to be a lot of specific management direction through that. I think perhaps what a strategy could provide is some of the more overarching coordination. Is one of the things that LandPro brings up, is that while there's good interaction perhaps at a one-to-one staff level between different organizations, there perhaps needs to be a more overarching connection in terms of lakes management, and it's identifying that and setting up how that might work, that perhaps where a strategy could sit.
And if I could just jump in, I guess that's at risk of planning for planning. That's the advantage of potentially doing the scoping step, as you explore and tease out those issues of what actually should go in the strategy and what's being dealt with elsewhere. Yeah. And you do that in a really methodical, clear way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I quite liked what Pam said before, that it could be an in tandem type of approach, and it does add value.
Yeah, and if I could add to that too, sorry, Gretchen, and I was sort of adding to what James said, but one of the criticisms from the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment was that lack of coordination, which has also shown up in this particular report, as James has just touched on. So we've now had two recommendations around coordinating some of the action that's happening within our communities through a range of community groups and other agencies. So I think that coordination aspect is one of the aspects that could be brought forward, frankly. I wouldn't want to wait 3 years for that. We would be ignoring some of those recommendations if we waited that long. But ultimately, those various groups will ultimately inform the strategy. We need to make sure that those different groups and agencies and central government ultimately help us inform the overall strategy. And that's the reason we can't sort of do it in 12 months while we're busy with the land and water resource plan. We can if council wants to bring it forward, we'll have to find a way of resourcing it. We can bring it forward. But of course, I've also got to be conscious that we've got a limited number of staff resources in the space, and their workloads are, pretty challenged right now, frankly. So it's about balancing those two aspects. There's some stuff we can do straight away. Potentially a governance working group would be really helpful. With that focus on those specific lakes, and then maybe in parallel we're working along with our community and developing a longer term strategy.
Councillor Malcolm, then Councillor Laws, then Metham.
Yeah, look, it is probably a real timely letter from the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment. It's a big long term, and it is highlighting the fact, I think that what it really does highlight the fact that there actually is some people doing a lot of good work, but probably we don't actually even know what they are doing, or we're certainly not coordinating it. And one of the very things that we said about integrated catchment plans was to ensure that we do a stock take and see what people are actually doing in those zones before we actually get going. So I'm really reinforcing Councillor Forbes's comments that we do need to get on with things, but we are actually doing 26 of the 43 recommendations. So I suppose, James, my question really is around to ensure that we are actually targeting our energies and resources properly. Will you be doing a stock take of what actually is happening out there? And will you be, I suppose, in the study, your ground truth, the viability or the depth of need for the remaining 17 recommendations? And in fact, we may even have them programmed anyway. So
Well, I guess some of that work is being done through existing processes, but it's that kind of work that the scoping stage that was originally proposed would be covering.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I'd also say that the integrated catchment management, that would be part of, standing up each of those catchment management plans. So in part, it's a matter of timing in terms of that being rolled out, and Gavin, if he was here, would be able to provide a bit more detail about that, but we don't want to necessarily duplicate an effort that would happen already. And the idea of having a spatial database as part of that integrated catchment management approach, we'll be able to collect that data, I imagine, as well.
So and probably to you, CE, would be the letter we have from the commissioner. So the response back will include the things that we are actually doing and the progress that we're moving ahead. And it would probably suggest, which would be suggesting where we could get central government support to help us look after probably not just our own lakes, but other lakes in the South Island.
Yes, I mean, I literally only received that letter on Friday. I've shared it with council this morning, but I haven't shared it with staff. So Andrew and James are slightly at a disadvantage in discussing this. So I'm sorry, guys.
That's why I'm asking you for the response.
By definition, we're sharing with Simon Upton the work that we have done and the work we're currently doing, and that we're also prepared to step up to the plate and pull together a longer term strategy, and also start coordinating some of this activity that we're recognising, one, that we share his concern, and two, that we're keen to see this as an opportunity to work more closely with central government and other agencies to address this concern.
Awesome. Thank you. Councillor Laws.
Thank you. We're in questions still, right?
We're in questions, yep.
Integrated catchment management plans have been promoted as an alternative way of approaching this particular issue. Can I ask the obvious question? When would those integrated catchment plans be expected to be completed by? So when's the last integrated catchment management plan going to be completed by under existing policy?
If you have an answer to that, it might be difficult to know with LTP planning not being done, but you might have an answer.
I don't know the answer to that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
What is it, years? Is it decades?
I'll have a go at answering it. It's going to be years, Michael. So Gavin's not here today, and he's the person who would normally be speaking on this because it's in his area of responsibility. But yes, as you know, we're starting with the Catlin, and I would expect this to roll out over a number of years.
The reason I asked that question, I'm sure you understand, Pim, is because I wanted a date, is because that's how long it would be if you carried the integrated catchment plan concept to its conclusion. That's how long it would be before you get to attack the degrading or degraded quality of lakes in particular catchment areas. And I don't think, and I'm just flagging now, that we should be waiting that long.
Correct, which is why I, as you might have caught on when you might have just joined us in time, Michael, that's the reason that I'm recommending that we change the current recommendations and attempt to address those deep water alpine lakes through a governance working group. But that's really up to council to decide.
Right, Councillor Mepham.
I guess this is a fairly basic question, and I guess it sort of follows on a little bit too from Michael's concern about the length of time it might take to get things sorted. But if there was one lake that we could focus on, what lake would that be? And if there was one thing that we could do to make the most significant improvement to that lake, what would it be?
That's probably the question, but yeah, us as well.
Through the chair, just in the first part of that, Anita might want to chime in just around the national policy statement for fresh water, and then the objectives and the bottom lines will complement some of that integrated catchment management work, and I guess direct it as well. I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, I can't give you an answer about the lakes. I I know my lakes, the life scientists will have a view. It depends what we're trying to achieve. So we're already in Lake Hayes, we're doing some work in Lake Tokoro. And we know that the alpine lakes are nationally really good, but there's trends emerging that if our scientists were given an opportunity to develop a work program, they would jump into it. The existing regional plan water and councils acknowledged it's not fit for purpose anymore. The new land and water plan that is notified next year will have legal effect. That will start to drive behaviour changes. It will introduce rules, objectives, policies that will strengthen the management of the lake. The plan can't do it all though. So I guess the question is how you set the ICN and or the strategy alongside the plan to start to do the things that the plan can't and won't do. So we will start seeing some changes from early 2024 when that plan was notified.
Yeah, that's following normal process, and Anita, which none of us are arguing with. We all understand this is it's good process, and developing the land and water regional plan is not an overnight exercise. So this has taken how many years, Anita?
Not as many as it should have.
So the point I think in answering Tim's question is that the council can always choose to prioritise additional work, and that's a council decision. And if you're saying if there was one lake, well, I'm not sure, but we're now indicating that we're very concerned about our deep water alpine lakes, of which I think there might be 3. So, but if we're working in partnership with our neighbouring councils, they've got those as well. So there's opportunities for us to address if that was a priority for council. And then the role ultimately for me, because I have the staff and resource working for me, is that I would then shape the work program, find the resource we need, and support the current staff with maybe some additional ones to help prioritise that new work program.
James.
I was just going to say that there are some lakes that have been chosen, for example, Lake Hayes and Wakitoto, that are being worked on. And also wanted to highlight one of the points that the report did raise was that we do good work finding degraded lakes and looking at them, but one of the things that we also really need to concentrate on is looking at the ones that are well and keeping them well. And that probably goes to your point about the deep water lakes that perhaps do need a bit of that focus as some of those current trends are.
Councillor Malcolm and then others.
You can just reflect on what Councillor Laws is saying, and I am probably pretty relaxed about forming that group that we're sort of talking about. But one thing, what I don't want to do is go over the bow of the integrated catchment, because long term that will be the way. I'm sure that will be the way forward. So, but are we not due to do the Upper Lakes next? Don't we go Catlins and Upper Lakes? In fact, we were going to do Upper Lakes first, and then we had a bit of a hiccup. But so we're now at the Catlins, and I thought our next scheduled integrated catchment was going to be Upper Lakes.
Yeah, I know that we to and fro a couple of times on our first catchment.
Yeah,
there was a reason why we ended up backing off the Upper Lakes. I don't think we've made the decision yet that will be not that I'm aware of, and Gavin's not here. I'm sorry. But look, it's still going to be a high priority. So it'll certainly, I expect it to be either the next one or one of the next 2.
Yeah, and probably my rationale behind that is if we are putting a resource into doing the integrate, I just don't want to. I don't want 10 people there doing that and 10 people doing the strategy, and they're both doing exactly the same thing. So that's the rationale behind
look,
that.
to be perfectly honest, we all understand that these things are linked. Yeah, you know, I mean, the quality of lake water actually impacts on the quality of river water. So none of these things are completely stand alone. But some of this is about monitoring that water and the changes that's occurring to the quality of that water over time. And we've got changes happening to both the land use in terms of urbanisation around some of those deep water lakes, and we've got climate change. So look, we've you know, it's been wonderful that the council's found the resource to introduce 2 lake buoys already. We've got 2 more coming. And that'll be really helpful, especially over a time series, to see what's happening with what's really happening at different depths in terms of the quality of that water. So that'll be helpful too. But look, in the end, it is the council's call around what are the priorities and what areas you wish us to focus on.
Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you. My question to staff, because I think as we look at what has been made very clear that much of this work is currently underway, I'm now far more interested in, well, why is Otago unique in this? Because we have Southland, we have ECAN, we have potentially one or two other regional councils in the North Island with deepwater lakes. If you start just singling out the deepwater lakes, we're getting down into relatively small numbers. So I wonder whether, of course, this must proceed, but is the question actually what should be asked first is straight to central government. Is there any central government direction on this that could be collectively across all of those regional councils who have these specific deepwater lakes? So that Otago doesn't start inventing the wheel on a strategic plan that then gets picked up by other councils because we're overloaded as it is. Some specific direction from central government could actually bring together expertise across New Zealand that highlights then all lakes. Is that a sensible way forward for this? That's my question at the start.
Might just perhaps help, excuse me. Canterbury already has a water management strategy that sits across the top of all the regulatory documents. And Southland has as well, I think. So there's already frameworks in place around the country. That was an active conversation at OIC around the time of the Minister's review, but the decision was made that we didn't have time to do a strategy and the plan. And so the focus was on the plan.
It'd be fair to say that I've started having discussions with our southern regional councils to lift the profile of this again, though, of the Southern Lakes. We're in the early stages of that, but there's certainly support at this point for being a collective collaborative approach, because you're absolutely right. Particularly in the south, we've got some very clean, very important lakes that need some focus. Yeah, let's not wait till they do get to a degraded state before we act. It's far too late then. So now's the time for action. Thanks for the question. And now there's other hands, Councillor Forbes, then Scott, then Wilson.
I just have this may be slightly adjacent to this, but I think it's important. I've got an example, and it is Friends of Lake Hayes seeking to pin QLDC's new district plan to ensuring that any further development in the catchment actually regenerates the catchment. So it does better than even any further development. And that is enshrined in the QLDC district plan policy 24.2.4.2. And they're always, or very often, having a go at OIC as how we hold QLDC to its policy. Would this sort of strategy help us with that and get these things lined up?
So can I help that? So OIC was a party to getting that policy in the Queenstown plan through our appeals work that we do. We've explained to the Friends of Lake Hayes that that's exactly the sort of policy that we should be putting in the land and water plan. In the Dunstan Rohay chapter, that is a specific Lake Hayes provision. So that will, and you'll recall we had an additional meeting for the Lake Hayes community as part of this current consultation, so that they can actually bring those ideas through. And that's what the land and water plan framework is set up to do, to bring those through and to have that specificity for lakes. So we should see some differentiation between what's in the Rohay chapters for Lake Hayes and for the Alpine Lakes. But that's not enough on its own. But we'll absolutely.
So that'll come in, and we could extend something like that to the other lakes of the region.
Absolutely.
In a lake strategy.
Oh, in the plan.
In the plan. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Brian.
Just some quick questions, if I may. So a basic one. The 6 recommendations that are here, they build upon the land and water regional plan. Yeah, we're not duplicating, we're complementing. Yeah. And doing it over a time frame to link in with the LTP.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Now we've had a suggestion that a governance or a working group get formed, which I think's a great potential idea. So does that get added as number 7, or does that completely replace everything that's there and that group actually looks at it with a clean piece of paper and decides what needs?
No, my suggestion is an additional recommendation to the recommendation. And then the recommendations as they stand are also subject to any changes council might wish to make. So if I was hearing that the timelines are too long, and then you will need to adjust the recommendations. And as I've indicated, it's ultimately the CEO's job, might be the new CEO's job, to prioritise the resources that would be needed if we wanted to bring that work program forward. But I am indicating that 2023, the working group might have a very narrow focus on the deep alpine lakes. The strategy ultimately has to line up or align itself with the Land and Water Regional Plan, and the staff are similar staff. So we've got to be very cautious that we don't start the strategy next year. That would be too soon.
Cool. No, gotcha. Thank you. You're eating into my question time.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. And I've read the report and I've gone through the different stakeholders, and I see, for example, you communicated with the Hardware Guardians in Waiwanaka. I couldn't actually see in there what their view was about a strategic plan. They said they wanted more research and monitoring, and there was some frustration. Maybe I missed something, but as a matter of interest, and Mana Whenua didn't communicate.
They provided some written feedback, but they didn't take a full part in the.
But as a matter of interest, just to help me, even though you went through all this, what do they think about the way forward in terms of the strategic plan? Are they supportive of what's going on generally here? Obviously, that was the conclusion of the report, but was everybody sort of in agreement in terms of this way forward?
Through the chair, I can answer just about Manawhenua. It's just, it's not that they were not interested, but they're already undertaking through ICM and the Land and Water Regional Plan. They were clearly articulating in a partnership role their objectives and priorities. So there's no point replicating that in this kind of more narrow subset. So those things should both flow through in the development of a strategy, those values and priorities. And I think the consultants that undertook this research and did the consultation came to the conclusion on the basis of that feedback that a strategy was supported by stakeholders.
And like, did Hardware Guardian support it?
We don't have that level of detail, but we can find that out.
And to our CE, like, would they be potentially involved in how would you set up? Well, maybe that's the detail, but
no, it's not detail. There's no way we're going to do a lake strategy without involving Mana Whenua. That's exactly the same way as we've involved them in the Land and Water Regional Plan.
No, true. But I also like the guardians of the different stakeholders.
Absolutely, that's the whole point of. So this is why I don't personally believe that we can wait for the strategy before we start coordinating the activity. Because that's one of the criticisms we've had both in this report and also from the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment. So we've had the criticism from two people. One's a report that we've commissioned ourselves, and one's from an independent.
And do we know roughly what the cost is, the implications of these recommendations?
It's 200,000. The team's budget is.
Sorry.
No, to be perfectly fair, the next step, which was stage 2 that James touched on, we think might cost another $100,000. And then the longer term strategy, which was going to be part of the next LTP, you'd already indicated at the beginning of this presentation that you weren't sure what the resourcing implications would be.
Yes, that's right.
Madam Chair, I'm happy, unless Councillor Laws wants to move it, I'm quite happy to back off, but happy to move the 6 recommendations plus the 7th recommendation. What's the appropriate wording for that?
I've just got the wording to Liz right now for what you're about to do.
Okay, well, the formation of a working group,
Creator Lakes.
I think Michael Laws might want to move that.
And getting it all a bit stronger.
Councillor Laws, we'll go to you. We're not sure whether you've got a question as well.
No, I think we've had a lot of good discussion. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move if that's helpful.
We'll check what Councillor Malcolm has written down there and whether that is what the mover, who is Brian, wants to say.
Michael's going to move.
Oh, sorry, Michael's going to do it. Okay.
I've had my hand up.
Oh, sorry, Kate, I missed that.
No, there's only one lake that isn't in here, and I appreciate why it isn't, because it's not there anymore, but where would we be in, the government's right into us going back and recreating wetlands. Tuna Hiki Taka being Lake Tari, or Tari Lake at Waipiata Coconut area. And it's an unfair question because I should have added it at the start of this whole process, but understanding where those ones, and maybe others, that where they could sit in a strategy.
Through the chair, this is the report just focused on a subsection, so
Yeah.
it can incorporate in whatever scope you would like, current, existing, former lakes, water bodies. So it's up to the council to determine the scope.
Thank you.
Yeah, just thinking about that one now, whether it be determined as a degraded system that we have to work on, if it's a natural something that's been lost, I don't know. But it's a good question. It's hasn't been included in here, but something to think about.
Strategic plan.
Right, so what have we got there?
I better put a date with that, reporting back to council to the March 2023 meeting. How does that time frame look?
Sorry, I thought.
Can I speak on this?
Yeah.
Well, you're the mover actually,
Yeah.
rather than Kevin, so you, can you see what's getting put up there at the moment, Michael?
I can, thanks.
So as you're given the status of the mover, you need to move something that is your words. Yep.
I would have slightly different set of words. I'm sorry, Kevin, mate.
I know, but we had to get something going.
No, it's fair enough. That's all right. So mine would be that a working group be established tasked with providing an overall plan for council consideration. To advance a lakes strategy, capital L, capital S for the region.
To advance
A lakes strategy for the region. Dash, and include authorization to engage with all relevant stakeholders and report progress back to the 22nd March 2023 council meeting. Can I explain the reason why it runs that way? Because that will then set up the group immediately, get them to have a preliminary meeting, make some assessments, bring in staff, and then we can endorse a terms of reference and where we go from there. In the meantime, it lets Gretchen talk directly to the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment saying, we've got a group and we're on our way.
So it says that we're going to bring back options for a working group though, I think, at the moment.
So do I get rid of this? Do I get rid of this first bit, council laws?
Yeah, I get rid of the option. We're going to set one up.
Okay.
And might as well throw this to us. Sure, it needs to.
So I'll read it again. The working group be established tasked with providing an overall plan for council consideration to advance a lake strategy for the region and include authorization to engage with all relevant stakeholders and report progress to the 22nd March 2023 council meeting. Hopefully we'll have a set of terms of reference that also authorises the working group to engage with stakeholders to put some flesh on the bones, so to speak, for council colleagues. And it also lets Gretchen and anybody she so chooses to meet with Simon Upton early in the new year, inform them of progress and get them on board. It'd be lovely to have them on board officially by the 22nd of March council meeting next year.
Sorry, Councillor.
I've got two things. Would you include relevant stakeholders, including government officials?
I would put them down as a stakeholder, to be honest with you.
Yeah, just.
When we talk about stakeholders, we're talking about everybody that has contacted with us. That's communities, iwi, lake groups, and obviously government officials, and obviously the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment. So stakeholders is pretty broad.
Yeah, including you. And my other question is, does this motion now supersede number 4?
Yeah, I guess it does.
Yeah.
I guess it incorporates number 4 would be a better way of putting it.
And
Yeah,
that
we
still
might
needs to
want to
be
just
there.
think about that, because that isn't what we said just before,
Yeah, that needs
which
to
is
be.
that it's developed in parallel, because it adds value, and we'd already discussed all of that earlier on and heard the advice of Pim on that one as well. Amanda?
If I could just ask, so with resolution 7, are you looking to establish a working group on the deep alpine lakes in relation to the letter from Simon Upton? Or are you talking this resolution 7 is the entire lake strategy?
No,
that was
it's a
planned?
working group. Well, Councillor Laws, it's his resolution, but
Well, it's just 3 words. It's where to next. It's forming that plan for council approval. But it also, in the short term, gives the authorization to Gretchen and that group to engage with stakeholders so that we can bring back on the 22nd of March and deal with the immediate issue of dealing with the minister, with the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment.
So there'd be no doubt that the immediate issue and the priority is the deep alpine lakes. However, we know that there are some, it's in a context of having 7,000 lakes in Otago, so which we can't ignore either. So
spot on, Gretchen.
Sits behind the fact, that we've talking about deep water lakes, but actually we've got some very heavy responsibilities for the blessing we've got of that many lakes. Right, who was
Happy to second
next?
that.
Where are we at? You're seconding, Councillor Malcolm. Happy with that wording? Oh, sorry, Councillor Somerville. Now's the time for debate.
Yeah, thank you, because I think our discussion earlier, my understanding of it was that we were talking about this extra recommendation to add to the ones already up there, was about the deep alpine lakes only, in order to expedite the action on that. And this new recommendation, number 7, actually is much broader than that now. And I guess I would favour, I think, having heard the discussion, of having that group focused on the deep alpine lakes.
that would be an amendment.
Yeah, that'll be an amendment to the.
Would that be a starting with the deep lakes? What do you think, Michael?
Well, it's just that the whole point of we've just started on this journey. It's been a long time coming. We're taking the lead. We need to be able to drill into the nitty-gritty. You would think it would start on the alpine lakes first, because that's where the political pressure has come from the PCE. But it's got to be a bit broader than that. As Gretchen's rightly pointed out, there are a number of other lakes that are deserving of our consideration, from Lake Dunstan, Lake Waihola, and basically all points in between. And a number of those lakes are being degraded on a daily basis. So we wouldn't want to forget them in our planning going forward either.
And our iwi partners as well, and what the values are for our lakes. We need to be cognizant of the whole picture. I
Said
think.
it's providing an overall plan, so surely that we have to provide a plan. So
Yeah.
Right, sorry.
Yeah, and that's why that word overall plan.
Yeah, I hear what Alan's saying, but I would have thought that this working group, as I think Alexa's alluding to, will come back with a plan. One of the first things in the plan is, what is their priority? Because they'll only have a finite resource. Is it going to be just the alpine lakes? Is it going to be all the lakes? Or is it going to be first this, second that, third that? And that's the type of thing that I would expect to see in a plan. I don't think myself personally, I don't feel comfortable about making this decision alpine lakes only. Where's the scientific basis, to make that decision? Are some of the other lakes in a more difficult situation? I'm hoping the Working Party will actually come to grip with these types of issues and come back with them for our consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. without the rest of the council agreeing to anything going forward. It's not that sort of the thing, I wouldn't imagine. It's more of a scoping out of where we're at. What can we do now? What's the opportunity that's presented to us right here and now? And what are the issues that we're facing right here and now? Because there are some, like communities that are doing fantastic work who will probably lose their funding very soon as well, that type of thing. There's some stuff that needs action now and they need some people assigned to doing that, but anything that needs decision making needs to come forth to council. Yeah. Who's got their hands up? Someone over here, I think it was all.
Well, I did put my hand up. I just think we've got to be really careful because if you're gonna have your strategy for all lakes and all of Otago, you've got a whole different working group party required than if you're just doing a Alpine Lake strategy, which I think is intended to be targeted at. So, and you got to be careful because you got to deal with, when you're doing your lake strategy, you've got to be dealing with the people who are living around and around the area of the lake. And they vary because each different community and each different lake has its different values and requirements. So, which is why the integrated management plan system has been put in place. So I just think you've got to be careful that we're going to set up a working group that is clearly defined what the working group's targeted outcomes are, or what the actual what we're actually expecting from that working group. Because I don't think I want to set up a working group about, I don't think I want to set up a confined working group that's going to be dealing with all lakes in Otago. But I don't want setting up a working group that's going to deal with that specific area, because you then have a working group that would be doing work that's going to feed into your integrated catchment plan in that area in the future. And we don't have the time to wait for integrated catchment management plan in this case. So, and it'll start to create a format. So I think I just want to make sure that what we're deciding is what we think we're getting.
Sure.
Yeah, so my thinking is this. We have an opportunity here. And my thinking is the working group is ultimately going to determine those priorities, Lloyd, and actually the terms of reference will have to be signed off by council anyway. So we don't need to necessarily limit the working group's thinking right now. But my way of thinking is this is not that different from when we had the opportunity to bring forward some of our flood resilience work because there was shovel-ready money available. And right now we have an opportunity to work with central government to focus on those deep water alpine lakes. You know, we can turn this into an opportunity to prioritise that work before we would normally have got to it otherwise. So my thinking is that the working party will determine what that list of priorities are. And that, therefore, I don't need to put alpine lakes in there now, would have been my thinking. It may turn out that there are 6 lakes or something that they want to prioritise.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing is
Ellen had his hand up first.
Sorry.
Alan, you did have your hand up
Look, I
first,
just need
you.
clarification with how recommendations 4 and 7 sit together, or does one supersede the other?
So my thinking, I'm sorry, Gretchen, for dominating us, but my thinking is we are asking you to accept the program that we had planned, which is that we've done stage 1, as James explained. We're now going to do stage 2. That's recommendation 4. And then we would possibly, if you were asking us to bring forward the overall lake strategy, we might try and resource that earlier than the LTP. The working group would actually potentially inform that decision as well. But the overall lake strategy for 7,000 lakes does have to sit comfortably with the other work we're doing around ICM and the Land and Water Regional Plan. So we've got to be careful that we're not duplicating or overlapping or contradicting ourselves. So I'm thinking the lake strategy as a whole is a large piece of work, working with a lot of different parties. That's going to take time. We might bring it forward, James, but we're not going to be bringing it forward. You know, it's not going to happen in 2023, put it that way.
Councillor Scott.
Yes, my question is to advance the lake strategy for the region, just whether that for the region should be deleted. So it's actually up to the group.
That's fair enough.
You know, to come back with.
May well be a focus
Just the lake
strategy.
strategy.
Yep.
And Madam
Key
Chair,
achievables right now, yep.
and whether we actually put in some words that, that consideration be given to priorities or prioritization or whatever.
So the way I read it, I mean, it all comes down to the way we read the words.
Yeah.
But when that resolution reads overall plan, I'm thinking it's overall plan for how we prioritize the work and how we end up developing the lake strategy.
Yeah.
Sooner or later. So
Yeah.
that's the overall plan. It's a plan for what we're going to do.
Yeah. So Liz.
Well, you need to check with Michael rather than getting us to decide to change it, and it's got a seconder.
Oh,
Yep.
sorry, apologies. Well, what do you think,
Need to
Michael?
be an amendment.
To be honest with you, Brian, I don't think it really matters. At the end of the day, a working group is a pretty finite body. It's designed to bring something back for all of council to consider. The working group may consider that it's confined to Otago or make that recommendation. It may say, no, we're going to liaise with the Southland and ECANS, or go even wider than that. We'll bring that back, won't we?
No, my point was the working group might want to just focus on alpine lakes, and I've reread the letter from the parliamentary commissioner, and it's in reference to the deep water alpine lakes. So the working party might say, well, actually, that's where our focus might be, but then they look at the resolution and it says for the region. And I just.
But we might, when we look at the lake strategy, and remember when we commissioned the lake strategy, it was to look at all lakes in the region.
Yeah.
And then part of what the working group may well do, and all of us may well do, is then say, right, and these are our priorities.
Cool.
Yeah. Have I answered that properly?
No, that's fine. That's cool. Yeah.
Rightio. Everything is down and we've finished debating by the looks of it. We have a mover and a seconder for all of those together. So I can put that now, all in favour. Aye. Again.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Just responding to the media release here. Sorry, on to the next paper while I do that. Which is quarterly financial report. Jasmine is coming forward. Thanks, Jasmine. And Nick is the endorser of the paper. Just a noting paper, but an important one. We have received a lot of this information already. Yeah.
Is this all our cash?
Yeah.
Rate?
What? Yeah, what is this not talk?
I'm just dropping you off the version of annual report and statement. Sorry. Yeah, that'd be great.
You can just drop.
See what you heard at the top.
Right.
Thank you, Amanda.
Laws's hands up, but we'll just see if there's anything. We're just handing out some reports to anyone that's on the line. You can probably see that, and we'll be underway in a second.
So by way of an introduction of this report, you've just receiving our annual report from last year. So just to explain.
Sarah, sorry, I didn't introduce you before, but Sarah Monroe is here as well. Thanks, sorry.
No, thanks, Gretchen. So we'll just explain how these reports fit into the first time that you've seen the quarterly report with the main annual report.
Oh, they're different.
So Jasmine's section you'll see covers off the statement of service performance, and they are the targets which are actually documented in the annual report at year end. So you'll see those documented inside the report. And then I have prepared an activity summary report, as well as a statement of comprehensive revenue and expenditure, a balance sheet, and a treasury report. So I'll just hand over to Jasmine to go through the performance targets.
Yeah, as Sarah said, I'll just quickly run through it, given we're in a new training and this will be the first time some councillors have seen this quarterly performance report. So my section of the report is exceptions based. It means I'm only providing commentary where performance is off track. And we're aware you're already getting a lot of reports coming through committee and coming to council otherwise, so we don't want to kind of double up on things. So that's why we're sort of exceptions based. The report starts with a service delivery focus, and as you can see, we've got 80% of our performances on track for Q1. Then I go on to a breakdown by activity. So again, that's those service measures and targets in the annual plan, how they're tracking by activity. Have a couple of pages of service delivery highlights, as well as the challenges and risks as they stand at the end of Q1. There may have been some changes to things since then, but this is a sort of snapshot at the end of Q1. Moving on through to the performance summary by activity group. So there's 4 pages there where we've got the service delivery results and comments on the left and the financial performance on the right. And I just want to explain that the traffic lights are on the left. That's how we're tracking by service performance and against those targets. Those are listed in the final 4 pages of the report if you wanted to see them itemized, target by target, and how that's tracking each quarter will be kind of presented on the right there. But on these activity group pages, we've got the arrows related to financial performance. Those figures inside the arrows are the actual expenditure at the end of the quarter. That includes operational and capital. So sometimes those figures are slightly different to what Sarah's got in hers. It's just that the capital is included in my figures. The direction of the arrow shows whether the variance is over or under against budget, and the colours again showing the degree of variance. If it's green, it's within 5%, yellow is 5 to 10% variance, and red is more than 10% variance. And I think I will leave it there and hand it over if there's any questions.
Councillor Wilson.
I think my question is probably for Pim, if that's okay. As CEO, in here that you've got and I'm just going to find the page. It's page 294. The service delivery challenges and risks, and it's Q1 highlights the staffing issues. And I just probably want to put this in context of the Land and Water Regional Plan and thank all of the staff who are doing exceedingly long hours all over Otago at the moment, in part, but just because of all the pressure on their work, and that they're going into the RPS and barely get a holiday for hearings in January. So I'm feeling for them. Are you happy that everything is being managed and the way of getting through this at the moment? Because I appreciate the burden that they've got at the moment.
Yeah, look, staff are busy. It's been a long year. I think I mentioned in my CEO report, which comes up later, that ELT is well aware that staff are tired. It's December. They need a break, and I'm hoping most of them will come back in January feeling refreshed, like all of us hope to come back after a bit of a break. So look, there's always 1 or 2 areas of the business where I would be more concerned. I think council is well aware of, the policy team, NITA's team being an area where we've got real concern. There are particularly individual staff in that team, and Anita herself actually, who have had really just workloads which are too big. So there's a range of issues that you've raised. We also know that we've got an issue with staff retention, that we've got a tight labour market. Some of those things, absolutely, we watch those things really closely. So that's why this has been raised. But and I didn't write this report, Jasmine did. And we're well aware of some of those areas of worry. But notwithstanding that, we're really thrilled that we're making such good progress with our work program.
Thank you. I just hope that the staff are very aware that we're appreciative roundtable as well. You're aware of it.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Anyone else have any questions? Councillor Malcolm.
Yeah, probably further to that, is there any work streams that you feel could be threatened to complete their roles over this next period? And also with having a lack and a need for greater staff, is there a balance point where we're saying that tasks can wait, as opposed to using more expensive consultants.
Yeah, there's some areas which can't wait, and we are using more expensive consultants, and you're aware of those. And again, they're mostly in that policy space. There are some areas at the moment where about 50 FTEs down. We were 60 FTEs down when I first got this quarterly report a month ago. So we've made some more recruitment a bit more quickly than we've lost more staff. So we have comings and goings every month. You know, from a financial perspective, we think that's quite helpful that we've got some FTEs that we're not having to pay for to offset some of those additional consulting costs. But of course, it's not helpful because it puts pressure on the staff, the existing staff. So, you know, ideally we'll get that retention rate improved so that we're not having an 18% staff turnover. And also we're recruiting, and we're very busy recruiting because we're in a growth phase in terms of staff generally. So do I think there are areas which are at risk? Jasmine's just shared with you that at the end of Q1, we were on target with 80% of our work program. And at the end of an additional month, because I've seen Jasmine's report for one additional month at the end of October, that's still the case. So I'm really pleased with the way that we're progressing our work programs. It's an improvement on last year. So yeah, I'm not worried that there'll always be some areas which will become a challenge for us if we continue to be understaffed. But at the moment, I'm really happy with the work program. The work programs are progressing.
Thank you.
No other questions then at this point? The paper is to be noted December. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say, do you have any, I mean, I haven't explained my section, but I'm happy if you've got no questions to just take it as read.
Look, I'll add to that, Sarah, if I can. Again, these guys do an amazing job. So I flagged to you that the budget was looking overspent for the existing year that we're in at the last council meeting. And that was really with reference to this report. So you can see that the bottom line is tracking towards the $7 million deficit at the end of Q1, not the $3 million that was in budget. And that's a significant overspend. And I appreciate that council accepted that, I think, in terms of, at least in principle. My view is that if we continue to manage the businesses we're doing right now, that's where we will end up. So it won't be worse than that. So I wanted to share that with you.
Thank you, and thank you, Sarah. Sorry.
Okay.
Just,
I just ask,
quite a bit on our
I'm not
agenda
sure
today.
Not
Thank
sure
you.
what section of the report is yours. Is it? It's the financial reports. Is it?
Yeah.
So page 310, statement of comprehensive revenue and expense for the 3-month period ended 30th of September, showing a surplus of 698.
So there is the Q1. So what Pim is referring to is we're actually forecasting to make a deficit which is larger than what we had budgeted. At Q1, we've actually got lower, so there's lower employee benefits expense. However, it is intended that we are going to obviously hire those staff as well as have additional costs which are not in there yet for Q1. So the Q1 statement of comprehensive revenue expenses is obviously the revenue that we've received as well as the expenses that we've spent at Q1. But we know going forward in the future 3 quarters in the period, we are going to spend over on the things that Pim's already explained to you in the previous meeting.
Our spend isn't linear either. The Q1 spend that we've got there is we always spend more in the second half of the year. And the other thing is some of the things that are going to impact year end didn't kick in until after Q1, like the bus driver wage increase was only from 1 October, so it hasn't had an impact on the first quarter.
Okay.
And the other obvious area is that we've just completed our PSA negotiations. We're going through our staff pay increases. I'm really happy with that result. I think it was fair to both the staff and the organisation. And those payments we're hoping to get into people's pay packets before Christmas. So I've got Sarah's team working really hard on this, but that gets backdated to the 1st of July.
Yeah.
So you can see how big an impact those pay increases are going to have, not yet showing up at the end of September.
Just another question from my, the column that says actual 2023 12-month period, is that a rolling 12-month? Or is that
Uh,
through to the end of the financial year?
That is the actual. Sorry, that is actually a typo. It should be 2022. That's the
Okay.
prior year column.
Yeah,
Yep.
Right. But even in that column, it shows a large revaluation. Can I take it that's not taken into consideration?
Sure. So that large valuation of the 87 million, that is the revaluation of Port. And obviously we do that as part of our year-end adjustments after 30 June. So that's the market value at 30 June.
So
We
our-
don't make an adjustment for that during the year.
Yes, so our reported result forecasts through to the end of the financial year will include revaluations, which will actually show a surplus.
We normally don't put our revaluations in the forecast because they are non-cash. They go into a separate revaluation reserve and are ring-fenced in relation to those assets that they relate to.
Our reported result and
Our
our audited result will be a surplus.
Yes,
because
our
of the
audited
revaluation.
result, which you've received last year's, a copy of them bound, include those revaluations and it was a surplus.
Okay, so we will be reporting a surplus as an organisation.
It's unknown what the valuation will be. I can't speculate what that valuation would be at 30 June.
Yeah, it's just the
Based on historic revaluations, I would assume it would be a surplus, but I do not know what that would be.
It's just the concept we're having a deficit of $7 million here, but we will have a reported surplus.
As a group.
It is,
for the
it is
group.
likely, yes.
Yeah, it's just, I'm just wondering about the public perception of that.
We focus on the line above, which is the operating surplus deficit, so we ignore the non-cash revaluations, and we're talking about the operating surplus or deficit, and that's what Pim was referring to.
As a ratepayer, I'm pretty pleased that we're showing a surplus because we've got revaluations and properties and things that are appreciated like that. So.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, existing councillors or returning councillors will know that we report as a group, which includes the Port of Otago. And that gets audited as well. But we're also audited as an organisation without the subsidiary. And that's the numbers that I'm referring to when I'm saying that the deficit for the council's business is being forecast as quite a lot bigger than the budget.
Thank you.
I move that the report be noted and we receive the activity and financial report.
Thank you.
Every second.
Your seconding. Thank you, Councillor Malcolm. Got that, Liz. All in favour. Oh, sorry, unless there's more debate. Doesn't seem that way. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Hey. We've got some of these from the DCC. Well, shortly, but first up before that, we have the community survey results report. Thanks. Hey, great. I think we're all set up and ready to go. That was super quick, getting ready with a presentation as well by the looks of it.
Yes.
So I'll just hand over to you, Richard, if you'd like to take us through and introduce the team you've got with you.
Certainly. So I'll start with Vicky Roach, then, who is our team leader marketing and brand, reports to Joe Gaylor in the communications and marketing team. So Vicky oversees the community survey program, or has taken over this year since she joined us. And Natalie Richards, who many of you your returning councillors will be familiar with, who presented last year at the end of the first survey, the 2021 survey, and is back to run through a presentation today. Appreciate time is pretty tight today, so we will move through it fairly quickly, but also just to make sure we spend enough time for new councillors to understand what this is all about. And then run through some of the key findings of the survey. The paper itself has got last year's action plan and a report back, and it's got a draft action plan in response to the 2022 survey, which is the decision we're seeking from council today. And that really responds to the findings of the survey and aims to focus on the key things that as staff, we believe will get us on the right trajectory, I think, to improve the results of the survey. So I will hand over to Natalie to kick off. And then I think we'll just do questions as we go. And then we can move into the rest of the paper at the end of that, if that's right.
Thank you. Sure, you're welcome to ask questions then, everyone. Thanks.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for having me here. I guess just a quick introduction to myself. My name is Natalie Richards. I work for Versus Research. We're Hamilton based and we work with local government authorities all over New Zealand. So as Richard said, I was involved with the project last year, which was the first year of measurement, and this is a repeat of the work for 2022. Bit of a spoiler, there's not too many changes. So if you were here last year, it's not that exciting. So that's a good thing though, I think. I think you'd be pretty pleased with that. So what we'll look at today is I'll go through the project background again. There's some stuff around awareness, and then a few things around perceptions of the environment. There are a few changes in that, which is worth having a bit of a note about. Then there are perceptions of ORC, so those things are a little bit different. And then there's just a few comments that I'll make around things to consider moving forward. So as I said, this project was first undertaken in 2021. It looks to provide an understanding of really what the community knows about the organisation, also what matters to the community in terms of the environment in particular, and then how you guys are perceived. There's also some content in there around how they want to engage and the channels they want to do it. It's probably more in an operational sense, and we don't touch on that too much in here, but it is included in the report. This work was set up at the request of council to really help policy development and increase information-based decision making. So making sure that these are made on decisions made on data as opposed to assumptions. One of the things I would say in this is, and this is true of any survey with any council, is we don't usually see in this huge big shifts year on year. Like, this is a tracking project and it's designed to measure slow and gradual change over time. So just because there's been a lot of effort and work put into something, it's a very noisy environment that I'm sure you're all aware of that you operate in. And so that change can take quite some time, and people need to be told things several times often to be able to get that message through. It is a perception survey, so that's the thoughts of your community. So as I said, this presentation will cover comparisons between the 2 years. So I'll note those when we go through. In terms of method, we interview 1,700 people for this project, so it's a big project. It's across 2 different data collection methods, and really that's to work with ensuring we get enough people across a cost-effective way, which is online. We run that first, but we also use a telephone component because obviously not everyone is connected in an online setting, and also we can need to reach the smaller rural communities as well who may not have that coverage. So you're aware, the online component is sourced through a panel. So this is a panel provided by ConsumerLink, and they're linked with the Flybuys database. The telephone interviewing is done through random selection. It includes a combination of mobile and landline data in there. The interviewing dates was completed between the 6th of September. We run it online, and then we run the telephone component, ran through to October. These dates are comparable to 2021, and that's probably important to note because you don't want to be changing the time when the survey is completed. You don't want to have that seasonality included in there. What it does mean is it was run quite close to an election period as well. So that's probably something to bear in mind. In terms of interviewing, the bulk of it is completed through the online, and it's about 600 odd are completed through telephone, which is the same as the previous year. Are there any questions about the method before we go on? Just how we've collected data?
Sorry, Natalie, you mentioned about the impact, what potential impact of an election through that period, the telephone period. but even the other period online was built up or whatever. Has historically there been data that proves that surveys do get a little distorted at that time? There was a focus on perhaps other more important, they consider more important activities happening at that time.
I don't necessarily think that, I don't think it affects it too much. What you might find, and you see this in some others, is that you might get a change or some misattribution because people hear from this person saying, and this person saying, and then, oh, they will which count, you know. So I think particularly at a regional versus district level, you might get a little bit of that coming through. Yeah. Also, I think there's heightened publicity in your media around what's going on.
Thank you.
Elliot.
Sorry.
I was just wondering if you had any details about the how that panel that third party did the online surveying on was how that sample was selected.
So they do a profiling survey prior to you joining the panel. So they have an understanding of who people are and where they are. We screen as we go through that. They do have exclusion policies though, so you can't complete a survey within, you know, a year or 6 months on the same topic or in the same area. In terms of recruitment, they started off with the Flybys database, but they recruit online and offline as well. So they try and go as broad as they can. The selection is random, so they'll email people.
They just like email addresses that happen.
You have to opt in to be on the panel. So I think they've got, they're probably the largest panel in New Zealand. There are several of them. My concern is always, are they serial survey takers? And I think that's maybe where you're heading with that, but that's okay.
Like from just being a person on the street to being in that group, like.
I think that's why they started with the Flyby panel as a base, because it is quite broad and it is, I guess it's quite demographically quite broad, but there is that importance of being able to recruit offline as well. Yeah.
How? Sorry.
So like through, so things through like radio and TV and newspaper ads and things like that, rather than just going through, say, social media where you're narrowing down who you might be reaching. So their aim is, as a panel provider, to have a broad representation so that it can match up, and they usually compare that back to census.
Thank you. Just gonna draw everyone's attention to the fact that we actually need to be out of here and at 3:20. So we're gonna need to rush through this, to be honest. So Natalie, you're welcome to go through the report, but we're gonna need to do it quite quickly. Yeah.
Okay. Sample, you can probably look at this pretty quickly. The main thing I'd probably want to draw your attention to with this is the thing with the proportions with the wards or the district, sorry. They're not necessarily proportionate to your district, because if we did that, and this is probably mostly for new councillors, we would be inundated with people from Dunedin and we wouldn't be able to get a representation from some of those smaller districts. So we spread that sample and then we weight that back. The same with age and gender, we also weight on those. So weighting means it's representative in your sample as it would be in the population.
Kate.
Just a gender question, are you happy to add another in the small inclusive days that we live in? At the new.
Okay, specified. Yeah.
Yep.
Just thinking of changing.
Yep, I think we actually do have that in there. I'm just not sure that we had any, but I can go back and check that.
Thank you.
Okay, so this first section is around awareness. So the first question is top of mind awareness. So we say, you know, who do you know of? Who do you understand to be responsible for the management of the region's natural resources? This year, 75% of people correctly named ORCs. They either said Otago Regional Council, ORC, or the Regional Council. That was the same as in 2021. So there's very little shift in terms of that. What we do see here in terms of that chart is your dark blue is your 2021 and your light blue is the 2022. So pretty similar responses across there. We did have a decrease, that's what that green box means, a significant decrease in the terms of number of people that said Department of Conservation or DOC. We've got a little bit of a shuffle around in terms of don't know or Dunedin City Council. So I think that's the effect of your election, that not being quite clear. We then say what activities, we explain who the regional council is, and then we say what activities do you understand them to be responsible for. The primary association in this space is around water. So 64% in 2021 said a water activity. So this includes water quality monitoring, water control, flood management, those sorts of things. And that was 61% this year. Same with operational, went from 51 to 49. That includes your public transport in that space. Air and land, natural environment. So really similar results to last year. So no huge change in terms of that. And then ask them in terms of prompted activities. So we give them this list and say before this survey, which ones were you aware of that the council was responsible for? There was a slight decrease. It's only 3% in terms of water quality monitoring. So very small, but it's still by and large the most significant area that you're associated with. So these are the primary activities. Charting further down is all the other ones. Only 6% of people this year said, I don't know any of them. I didn't know the response. So, there is some reasonable level of activity and awareness, but as I said, very similar to last year. Okay, perceptions of the environment. So this question we ask about which of these environmental features do you think they are generally improving, staying the same, or deteriorating? And you have the 2021 results there, and then the 2022 results. Again, these are very similar year on year. Water quality is probably the concern here. You've got that's the area where you have the largest proportion of people saying it is deteriorating, and it's similar to what it was in 2021. Most or the majority of people with air quality think that it's remaining the same, similar with the land-based environment. Coastal resources this year, we saw an increase in people saying that this is deteriorating. So you can see that focus on that water, whether it be coastal or freshwater. Then ask about how well ORC is completing their role in terms of environmental protection. This is asked on a 1 to 10 scale, and we group these as 7 to 10 being excellent, 4 to 6 is average, and 1 to 3 is poor. Really similar results across here, 2021 to 2022 for most of these measures. There's no significant changes. In terms of highest performing, it's around air quality, and in terms of the lowest, it's around protecting those coastal resources. Okay, this question this year was asked around what people feel the most important environmental issue is facing the region. This is recorded verbatim, so they can say whatever they want, and then we group this up afterwards. Overwhelmingly, water quality, 37%, followed by climate change, and then land and coastal erosion. So you can sort of see a theme through here. Any of these quotes that are put down in the bottom are verbatim from respondents. I've picked them because they're sort of representative. It's not that I picked them to show any particular flavour, but they sort of capture the theme quite nicely in terms of the thinking around it. Water quality, further within the report, there are reasons why people pick that particular option. And I think one of the things about water quality that is the longevity of it. So it's about we don't want this to deteriorate further for future generations. It's that forward-looking and sense of urgency that people have got to this. As an aside, Waikato Regional Council did a very similar survey or on a similar question. Water quality was, I think, 42%, and the second was climate change with 14%. So asking the exact same question. So these are not Otago only problems. These are national problems, especially those first two. They get a lot of they get a lot of airtime, and they get it across the zone. We ask people how well they feel ORC have responded to that environmental issue. This is broken down by issue within the report, but there aren't any significant differences between them. This year, again, it's that 0 to 10 scale, with 7 to 10 being an excellent response. This year, we've got 14% of people rated the response as excellent, and that's a slight drop from the previous year, which was sitting at 18%. 30% are sitting in there saying it's a poor response, so it hasn't been tackled. When we ask why that rating is given, the primary reason for a poor rating relates to inactivity. So the issue is getting worse. I don't see anything being done. I'm not sure what they're doing about this, those sorts of statements. Average ratings also bring that into account. And the excellent ratings, though, say things like, I think they're trying to work towards a solution. I can see them doing something. I can see, I can see that there's something being done. While the issue may not be fixed, I can see that there is some action being taken in that place. The quotes below, the top one is from someone that rated it excellent. So you can sort of see they're saying, I can see them working towards a solution. The middle one is from someone that gave an average rating, and the bottom one is from someone that provided a poor rating. Are there any questions on that section? Did you want me to just say until the end?
We can have quick questions. I think everyone knows how urgent it is we get through this, though.
There's no
questions.
Okay, this section is around reputation and delivery against KPIs. So this year we had 47% of people who have used at least one of ORC services. So this year we included the website. So there's an increase in terms of service use from this year, but that's only because the question changed slightly. By and large, the service that most people have accessed is the bus service, and then lower levels of use in terms around inquiring about rules and resource consents. This chart's probably pretty important. It's about users' satisfaction. So if you had accessed the service, it's not a perception, it's what they've experienced in terms of delivering. So the first one is those that have used the bus. In 2021, 75% were happy with this, and that's dropped to 58%. And there's been increases in the lower ratings. Positively, though, we've seen good increases in satisfaction for those who have contacted you guys about inquiring about the rules, and also those that have used the pollution hotline. So I don't know that we need to bang on too much about the buses, but the main reasons in terms of that was the scheduling, but also the communication around that is a key thing. The next three charts show very little change, and these are the measures that you look at in terms of delivery against KPIs and information. So in terms of this is protecting the environment. How well are you doing at working with people? How well are you doing in exchanging knowledge? And how well are you doing at creating connection and pride? So again, around a third, which is your highest score in terms of protecting the environment, down to 22% saying that you're working to create pride in Otago. The next one is about reputation. So again, really high scores in terms of I'm proud to live in the region. The biggest area where we see dissatisfaction, which was similar to last year, is about providing value for money for residents with rates. I think last year there had been a rate increase around the time that the survey was conducted. So we saw that come through in some of the verbatim comments. Last one is information, and the scores here are all relatively positive. The information from ORC is credible and trustworthy are reasonably high scores, nearly 40% saying rating those really well. Access might be a little bit of an issue, although the dissatisfaction with that is not particularly high. So this last question is around overall satisfaction with ORC and how they service the region as a whole. There has been a decrease or an increase this year in terms of people that provided a neutral rating. So it's gone a little bit from the every area, but it sits at 43%. I will spend a little bit of time on these slides. We ask people why they were dissatisfied or satisfied. So this is again a verbatim answer and it's coded afterwards. So for those that were satisfied, the majority is that I can see that it's a good service, but you have seen a decline in the number of people that said, oh, there's no problem, and an increase in the number that have said it's a poor organisation. So even though I'm giving you that rating, I think the quote down the bottom explains that the services and compliance are okay, but transport's a mess, not being done, you know, like there's the buts are starting to sneak in a little bit here. In terms of neutral ratings, an increase this year and a significant one in terms of people saying it's a poor organisation or service. And again, a decrease in saying there's room for improvement. A decrease in terms of rates too high, and that probably references the point I made earlier about the timing of those rates notices going out. And a little bit of an increase here in terms of community engagement. This last one, again, a big increase in terms of poor organisation. This one also mentioned poor water management, that increased this year as well. So that's amongst those dissatisfied. Okay. So to sum it all up, it's not been a lot of change in terms of your top of mind awareness and awareness of your activities. Water obviously is a big theme in that environmental space, but again, this is stress this isn't an Otago issue. The rating for your response has declined a little bit, but that's driven by that inaction or not being able to understand the actions that you are taking. The decline in the bus service is quite significant. I know this is again not just an ORC issue. You see it in Auckland, we've seen it in Waikato. It is a national challenge, but there were good increases for ratings in those other service areas, and that's amongst users. So it was always positive to see. All in all, there's been limited change in terms of how people perceive you this year. There's been no significant. These quotes you can probably read for yourself. I feel like they sum up some of the sentiment really well. I like this middle one. I like the work we're doing, although when it comes to the environment, not much change is occurring. And that's sort of that sentiment. It's slow to change, but they're slow to see that too. So based on this, I guess moving forward, I think my biggest thing with this is focusing on the actions which restore confidence in ORC. So the comments about fighting that people pick up and things like that, I think it's about showing a united front. It's a new council, and I think people are ready to see that moving forward. The next one would be about talking about the plans and initiatives you have for those important environmental issues. Like water quality and climate change are huge, but what are you doing at a local level? What can people see? And that's around that and community engagement and being involved on the ground and helping to get people in that sort of space and understanding that. The point here about developing an ORC brand, it's about broadening people's understanding of what you do and the value you add. It's not just a logo and making things, the same color and everything. It's really about the reason you're here and the outcomes you're trying to achieve and trying to encapsulate that within a brand. My last point is address the public transport issues. I know this is very operational. I know it's a massive challenge. The reason I also put that up is some of the people that are using public transport are your most vulnerable. They're your people that can't communicate or can't move in other ways. So it is a challenge, and they're the ones that you're really looking at. That's me.
You're more like it. That's fantastic work. Thank you. And sorry for rushing you. Let's have a few questions now. Councillor Scott.
Okay, moving forward, thank you very much. There's a draft action plan there, survey action plan, yeah?
Yeah.
And there must be something like 20 items, and communications and marketing, there's some compliance communicating that pollution hotline, this type of thing. Liaison with Radio New Zealand, it's all good stuff. Where did you get that from? Was there a bit of a workshop? Who came up?
So that's a staff. So at a manager level, looking at existing programs of work,
yeah,
and particularly the communications and marketing team, when we deal with those first two of the four key recommendations around ensuring that we are going out to our community and telling them, the ORC brand, in terms of making sure there's a good understanding of what it is that ORC is doing and the value that's adding. So it's got a very communication and marketing lens over the action plan, because that's really what the perception survey is looking to provide some direction on. So it is a staff list, but obviously it comes here and can be either approved or modified, or we can take councillor input on board.
Oh, and I'd just like to reaffirm the second last one, the state of the environment reporting, putting that more easily digestible terms. You know, we've talked about that. We need to deliver on that. If we can't understand what's going on, how the hell can the community? But no, thank you. I think it's a good step forward.
Andrew.
Just for the focus on number 2, Natalie, being a regional council versus a territorial authority, the topics and issues that we're dealing with are long-term, and it's not like potholes and library airs where the customer sees an immediate improvement. So are there any learnings from other regional councils, how to get those messages out that we're not sitting on our hands, we've got, programs in place, you somehow need to be patient for outcomes on the ground. I'm just thinking, is there any silver bullet to get that message through other than consistent messaging through your comms?
I think it really links in with that, developing the brand in parallel. Like, ultimately a brand is so that you can engage more easily, and when you do go out, it's more two-way. But these issues have been a long time and slow to come, so they're going to be a long time and slow to fix. But I think it's top down, bottom up. It is engaging at local events, it is being at community events and having your 2 cents. It's facilitating those relationships as well, not taking it all and being all your responsibility. But I do feel like developing that brand and having that consistency, which also takes time, does help get awareness become more solid.
Thank you.
So sorry, I know simple.
No. I think, really those 2 and 3 dovetail together. Yeah.
Yep.
Natalie, you talk about developing a brand. That sort of interests me a little bit, and it's not just about the picture, but how do you think it's all very well to say develop a brand, but how do we go about developing a brand? Where do we start developing our brand? So, because you're sort of basically saying we don't have a very strong brand. So what do you think?
I think a brand, when you think about brand, it's more around, the first point is that consistency. It is around your logo. So if it's different all over the place, then it's, So it is about getting those small things right. But then it's looking at, well, what are the values of the council? Is everyone actually prescribing to those? When we go out, are we open-minded and thinking? It's how a company, if you think about it in a commercial sense, operates. It's what you want to deliver on and why you're there. And I think it's about having those conversations as well as some of the more operational side of things in terms of the marketing and the planning.
So it probably starts with your vision.
And it hangs everything else around it.
Thanks, Lloyd.
It's interesting. I disagree with that to a degree. It's actually being seen and saying the same message. But it's when I see that you've got the Wanaka AMP show, that's probably the last show I'd go to. Is I'd be going to all the other smaller ones, because I think you'll get greater engagement with those smaller ones anyway.
Yeah.
And you'll get a greater cover.
Great. One of the teams within RSC are doing that. They're planning on going on to all those smaller ones and get out there.
Cool.
So that's come out of us reaching out about Wanaka AMP show. They're like, we want to attend all those smaller ones too. So
you'll let
that's
councillors know that that's happening.
And the same process as Wanaka. Wanaka's just the established one we've done for a number of years, but I know the implementation team are looking at much more broader coverage, and that'll come through that governance setup where we'll let you know when it's on and welcome people turning up to help the staff out for sure.
Good one. Right, who else? Anyone else want to ask any questions?
I'll just make one quick comment.
Oh, sure.
It's probably outside what I should be saying, but anyway, I just think, like I thought around, like the first one on the actions, like lots of, I really could develop your brand having really regular stuff that people can see regular, rather than doing big reports that nobody reads, just to have regular little stuff. And I just think we've got a real opportunity around coming into summer and swimming water quality. So you can have like a regular spot, and in a publication, you can say everything's sweet this week. And by the way, we're doing this, this and this. Yeah, just keep us always front of mind.
So we'll be bringing that top one to council to have a look at. So you'll have a chance to have a closer look at that particular action.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Okay. We do have the recommendations there, but I just wanted to say a huge thanks for putting this together. It is always really, really valuable. It definitely points to the fact that we need to positively and proactively tell our stories better. And we've got a really key part to play in that as governors, and changing the perception of what ORC is down to all of us. I think we've started off doing that really, really well as a council. So thank you to everyone that's been involved in that. That's everyone around the table, to you, Pim, to the team as well. We've got more to do in this space, so starting off in good heart is a really good place to be. But we recognise the things that Lloyd talked about, that Kevin's talked about. We've got a really important job in creating that brand. There's already a brand, maybe it's establishing that brand more, but that's our job, and we need to do it, and we need to do it quickly. But we've got some work planned in that space already as well. So we can hit the ground running with a lot of these, and it's fantastic to see that action plans already developed. Oh gosh, that was fun work. So thank you very much for that as well. We do mean business in terms of implementing all of those recommendations. So thank you very much to your team, Richard, for pulling that together. That's really impressive. So thanks. Who would like to move the recommendations? Councillor McCall, seconded Councillor Forbes, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Next one. Thank you for waiting, because I understand that we've had some DCC people waiting quite a while for this one as well. So we've got the future development strategy for Dunedin City, an important paper. We've recently had a workshop on this one as well. So got a bit of a team coming up the front here.
So I'll just briefly note that we've got Nathan Stocker here, who's got to leave in about 2 minutes, and that's another technical.
Sorry, Nathan.
Behind it. So if you do have any technical questions, you sort of have those first. But
straight out.
I'll just quickly introduce Dr. Anna Johnson, who's the City Development Manager from the city, and Fleur Matthews, who you may have met through the consultation. She's our interim policy manager that we borrowed from Greater Wellington. So between us, we'll hopefully answer your questions.
Okay, welcome to everyone. Everyone who attended the workshop probably is in quite good shape for understanding the context of this, but not sure whether somebody would like to run through further, or whether we utilise Nathan while we've got him.
I would suggest if you've got some technical questions.
Okay, does anyone have any technical type questions that they've saved up for this moment? Maybe that we don't, so which is fine. I'll double check that. Councillor Stoll.
Yeah, cool. So we're proposing a medium growth scenario, and you've ticked the boxes in terms of various social allowances. At what point do we say that we need to have more people living in their houses from a density perspective, as opposed to just building more houses and getting more land and doing, yeah.
Yeah, so when we're looking at both demand and capacity, it's not just about the number of people or the number of homes, it's definitely connecting up the types of homes and the locations that people want to live in, and which makes sense from various policy perspectives. So we have been focusing on intensification over greenfield through recent processes such as Variation 2. Especially in the last year, we've seen a lot more people living in, or a lot more homes being consented in intensification areas, a lot more attached homes and standalone homes for the first time.
Yeah, but what about the number of people in a home? You know, like what's the average number of people in a home?
2.6.
2.6. Is that efficient? Like, what's it take to get it to 4?
Wow.
You learned about the more two, Brian.
Next question, yeah. Oh, yeah. Right, so yes.
No, like seriously, how do you get?
How do you match the type of house so you don't get somebody who's a retired person on their own, essentially living in a 6-bedroom house?
Yeah.
Is that the kind of question?
Yeah.
Is there an answer to that? Don't know. If there is, you
There's a
can.
lot of empty houses, that's what I'm saying.
I think part of it's about choice, and we talked about this at the workshop, so providing people with the choice of type and location so that they can move and you can release some of those, you know, maybe mismatches in housing size versus demand into other places. You know, because people are often attached to a suburb, you know, as much as a house, and they might want to downsize but stay in that area. That's where their doctor is and their friends are, you know, their social groups. So part of what the DCC are doing is making sure that we've got choice,
Cool.
so people can do that. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
right, good answer. Okay, do we want, I think we've got the technical ones. That was an interesting technical question there for you. Thank you very much, Nathan, and for all your background work before you head away. Do you want to introduce other aspects of this paper?
Yeah, so what we'll just talk about for everyone's, just to refresh, is that this is the future development strategy is a requirement under the National Policy Statement for Urban Development. We're required to work in partnership. So we're ORC is engaged in 2, this one with the DCC and one with Queenstown Lakes District Council as well. And so you'll see various papers and workshops popping up as we move. There's lots of steps in the process. DCC are leading this, and there's several different groups and structures supporting the process. It's really important in order to meet the overall timeline that we get the scope clear now, so that the city can get some contracts in place to support the work program. So we had a workshop a couple of weeks ago, just to talk through some of the issues. This paper is just to now get that position from ORC, and then DCC will consider the same paper next week as well. So happy to take any questions. Obviously, we'll just take the paper as read, but we do have Anna as well, and she's got lots of the information. So feel free to pick her brains as you need to.
Fantastic. You're a great resource, Anna, and thank you as well for all the work that you've been leading through the team at the DCC. Okay, any other questions before we can move into debate soon? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. And slightly aside, we've talked, I think I may have asked a question at the workshop, but I can't recall how it's going to be dealt with. And that's the creek in Dunedin City. This is fine, it deals with Dunedin, but you've got obviously in Waihola some big issues in further north and Lockdown. I mean, Waihola, Milton and Balclutha actually, growth coming from there, which are working in Dunedin. How do we control or understand that as a component of growth? Or are you trying to bring in more housing so that stops?
Well, I guess there's 2 parts to that question. Is one is how do we understand it, and the second part was how do we control it. So the understanding it, I would say, is in Nathan's wheelhouse in terms of understanding population trends on the boundaries. And I think it is important that we look beyond the boundary of Dunedin. In terms of controlling it, I think the focus possibly is more about responding to it than controlling it, and understanding there's good things and bad things about those relationships and what it means in terms of infrastructure requirements. Certainly, it's not just us, it's schools and a whole bunch of other people that need to be cognizant of the movement across borders, library facilities, schools, everything else. There's a PT component. Obviously, if people come in, so we do need to be aware of what that is and look at what responses we might need to put in place. But we can't really control it. When we get to the regional spatial strategies, maybe the framework will get larger, and then we can look at that in more depth about, does that makes sense that that's where the growth is occurring.
Yes, I'll just add to that. You might recall that you approved an urban work program a couple of years ago that has stalled because we have no staff and are struggling to recruit staff. But part of that was about taking that bigger regional view. Anna's right, we've got regional spatial strategies that are going to come in under the new legislation, and they will probably, absorb a lot of what was in that work program. But we absolutely need to look at it for DCC, but also for Queenstown Lakes. The Queenstown Lakes Central Otago one is a bit more acute. And so it's absolutely front of mind.
There are some, and sorry, the reason I'm asking it, there are some real transport and water quality issues. Some of these other outliers that it seems to develop without that infrastructure, which is just us, one problem moving to somewhere else. It's
and at the moment we engage in a lot of that stuff through our submissions to TAs on consents and plan changes and stuff to try and it's very much an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff solution, but it's the one that we've got. We worked really closely with the city on some rezoning around Blueskin Bay, Doctors Point, to get a better environmental outcome as opposed to individual on-site wastewater systems. So we do work quite closely and try to support our TA partners to get a better environmental outcome.
Right, we'll move, and Councillor Moon's happy to second. You'd have a chance to speak, of course, at this point. You want?
Yes, thank you. It's great work, and I feel like I lived this for quite a long time, a few years back, and it's great to see progress. And it's interesting how things can change as they did 3 or 4 years ago so quickly, and now changing the other way. And being nimble in this space is particularly hard. It's easy to criticise councils, but it's very hard to keep up with what the market does want to do. So really grateful for the work you're doing in this area. Thank you.
Do you want to say anything, Andrew?
Other than, wonderful to have the opportunity to continue to collaborate with the city and on really important issues for the future. So thank you.
I just wanted to say as well how fantastic it actually is that we are collaborating over this, and thank the DCC for the leadership that they've shown in the space and making that and enabling that to happen. And also the staff that have been working on this, particularly through the DCC, as we lost our expertise in urban planning. But that doesn't mean that we haven't been really actively involved as well through Anita's team and Fleur, and thank you for coming in as well. And also just the work that we've managed to do with governance already too through workshops. It's been a truly collaborative process, and through that we've come up with a joint recommendation as well, which is the medium growth scenario. We're receiving this ahead of the DCC, and you'll note that there's a recommendation there that we would need to discuss further because we are doing this as a team. So just want to note that as well. If DCC came to a different conclusion for any reason, we'd want to talk it through. So anyway, we've got a mover and a seconder for all of those recommendations together. I'll put that all in favour. Aye. Against. Carried. Thank you very much, and thanks for waiting for us. The final ones in the public section is the Chairperson and Chief Executive's report. Oh, sorry.
I'm happy to move that amendment.
We absolutely do. We've got one more, which is the consultations on natural and built environment. So Kate, sorry, you had a question on that, and
I'm happy to move it with the exception that where it refers on my battery is about to go. Is with the submission, because of the date of the 30th of January, would it make sense where you've got Chief Executive in the second one, say along with the submissions working party, and be delegated authority to sign off or something along that line? Does that make sense?
Happy to do that. Yep.
You're happy with that recommendation changing it? Yep.
Working parties obviously aware that it's a really short time frame. So thank you. So the change then is recorded. Oh gosh, you're good, Liz. Amazing. Right. There are 4 recommendations and you've just added one in.
Yeah, I added
Yeah.
with the submissions working party to chief executive.
Added on to two.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So somebody's moving.
Yeah, that's what's the allegation to do it, because we're not going to meet again before the date is to run.
With delegation to submit.
Yeah.
Well, I think that it does direct.
I think it
I-
coordinated
I-
appropriate submissions.
Yeah,
because,
sorry, thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it, thanks. You're moving and seconding is councillor Somerville. All in favour? Aye. And against? Carried. Thank you very much. It was quick. Yeah, Alan Somerville.
We've got a submission. Link or something.
Chairpersons and chief executives reports, which have been tabled. And yeah, I chose to focus on mine, so I'm just bringing that up where it actually is. But yeah, chose to focus on the fact that I feel that we've been working really fantastically as a team of governors. And that takes everyone to achieve that. It's been an absolute pleasure working so far. I'm sure you'll all agree with every member of this team. We've got some fantastic skills. And yeah, I just think we're in really good heart as a council at the moment. And just wanted to note that, and I want to thank as well for your part in achieving that, definitely. And to the staff who've been working extra hard to get through a very heavy workload. So on top of what I've written there, it's yeah, getting to Christmas time. This is our final formal public council meeting before that time. So wanted to wish everyone a very happy festive season. It seems very early, I know, but just, yeah, thank you. Recognise the work that has happened this year. What a massive year it's been. But gosh, this organisation has achieved a lot as well. We've moved into a really positive space. I think we've got a lot more ahead, but we understand our challenges well, and we've got work programs in place to address those. And we've got a real willingness from everyone to just do what they need to do our very best for our communities. So thank you to everyone that's involved, particularly our staff. And my reports can just be taken as read. If there's any questions at all, you're welcome to ask them. Been out and about a fair bit, but yeah, I don't need to go over all those details. Thank you.
And thank you, Gretchen, for your work and Pim for your work.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm happy to move.
Right, thank you. Seconded, councillor McCall, sorry, Alexa. All in favour? Aye, against, carried, thank you.
Cool.
On to the next one, the chief executive's report.
Look, thank you. Look, I echo the comments that Gretchen just made. Really enjoyed the start of this training, and I've provided you with some comments of things that have happened recently in my diary, but happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, yeah, Tom.
Tim, just in regards to the land and water management plan that we have to submit by December 2023, are we on target?
Yes, we are actually. So we're obviously going through the second round of consultations on the FMU consultations you've been involved with.
Yeah.
And Anita's sort of listening in, I expect.
Half
Have you?
Yeah.
So Tim was asking, are we on target for December 23? We are on target.
We are at the same on target.
To meet that deadline, we actually have to have the proposed land and water regional plan pretty much completed in draft form by April.
That's right.
Thanks, Anika. So
Amazing.
It's been a lot of work, and as I've said many times, the people have been heavily involved and hands-on on that project, and mostly Annalise's team, and really keeping us going on it. And thanks all for all the help from all the councillors as well, by the way. It's been, I've mentioned it previously, but it's been a great example of collaboration between staff and council.
Sorry. No, I'm feeling, no, I'm not getting emotional. Just, yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Pam. Appreciate that. Okay, so anyone else have any questions then of Pam? No, we have the, excuse me, recommendations to monthly report. Somebody can move that. Councillor Somerville, seconded Councillor Weir. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Okay. Excuse me, I'm just getting there. The resolution to exclude the public. So we need to exclude the public from the next part of the meeting under the Local Government Act. So somebody here to move that. Alexa, and seconded Andrew. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Which closes the public part of the meeting and moves us into confidential. Thank you. 1 second, please.